The story begins with the fact that the school named after Yang was one of the main among thousands in the country, and 50 years ago it developed. The students looked at one place and thought that it was him, and they could not believe that this man himself came to school and were in shock. This school had more than 50 certified teachers and annually promoted a large number of students to the major leagues. At that moment, a car drove up to the school and the guards asked all the students to disperse and make way for the most important person. And then Shen Qian got out of the car, and he was the young master of the Shen Corporation and had a very influential authority. Students asked if they had heard that Shen Qian entered the 11th grade without passing the martial arts exam. The student asked Shen Qian should not have been expelled long ago because this exam was taken to enter the 7th grade of school. The student said that Shen Qian was from a rich family and they could not be allowed to hear them because otherwise they would be in great trouble. The guard asked Chief Shen if he should shut up these students so that they could no longer say such things about him. Shen Qian asked his man not to worry about it and said that he has money and can do whatever he wants. But at that second one of Shen's people asked someone to stop, and he ordered the others to grab this person and throw him out of there. And at that moment one of the students bumped shoulder to shoulder with Shen Qian, and he was very surprised and thought, who could do this now? Shen Qian fell to the ground and looked at the person who collided with him, learned that it was Shen Haotian, and immediately thought about this person. A man from Shen Qian's guard called the intruder a bastard and asked if he was blind and couldn't see where and who he was moving towards. Shen Qian asked his guard to calm down and said that there was no problem and asked him not to say anything to the person. But at this moment, Shen Qian's people said Shen Haotian was a thief and asked them to quickly capture him and prevent him from escaping from this school. Shen Qian asked the guy if he was a thief and how much he stole, and asked if he wanted him to help him pay now. Shen Haotian asked Shen Qian to stop telling him about this and asked if he really thought it was so good to be a rich man. Shen Haotian immediately stood up from his seat and ordered the watching disciples to get out of his way and began to leave from there without listening to Shen Qian. Shen Qian's guard asked the boss if they should capture this scoundrel to teach him a lesson and punish him for his impudent act. But Shen Qian asked his guard not to do this and told him to transfer 200,000 yuan from his account to this person. The guard was surprised and asked boss Shen Qian if he really wanted to help these poor people again and didn't know why he needed it. Shen Qian said that his father had a whole bunch of illegitimate children, and although they did not grow up together, they were his brothers and sisters. Shen Qian told his man that especially this Shen Haotian had fallen into such a life and was a thief and also an outcast of their family. After this, 2 years passed. Shen Qian asked the man to just listen to him and help him because he had serious problems. The man told Shen Qian that he was not suitable for training in these martial arts, and he advised him to go to a regular school for everyone. Shen Qian asked his friend to help him and said that he finally passed the army hand-to-hand combat last month and he was making progress. But suddenly someone behind asked if it was Shen Qian, the owner of Shen Company, and he clearly did not expect such a meeting today. Shen Qian turned around and wondered if it was Shen Haotian, and along with his guards, and thought how he could get up like that. Shen Haotian said that even after he passed the martial art that took him 7 years, he could still speak to his face. Shen Haotian smiled and told Shen Qian that he was just a disgrace to their family and he really felt sorry for his loved one. Shen Haotian asked Shen Qian if he was thinking about this day when he insulted him and called his brother the old heir of the Shen family. Shen Qian heard Shen Haotian's words well and asked when he insulted him, and he could not remember this act. Shen Haotian thought that his brother was a pitiful person and said that he had no desire to communicate with him or have anything to do with him. Shen Haotian told Shen Qian that he had ended the conversation and immediately threw some piece of paper in his direction, and he was surprised what it was. Shen Haotian said that this was a check for 100,000 yuan and asked Shen Qian to go away like a dog because now they are from different worlds. Shen Qian was unpleasant to listen to such words addressed to himself, but he bowed down and nevertheless picked up the check thrown on the ground by his brother. Shen Haotian told Shen Qian that he couldn't even say anything to him, and how could their family elect such trash as him as the head. Shen Haotian told him everything he wanted to say and began to leave from there with his guards, but Shen Qian asked him to stand. Shen Haotian turned around and asked Shen Qian if he disagreed with his words and why he asked him to wait there for him. But Shen Qian simply smiled and told Haotian that in the past he gave him 200,000 yuan and there was 100,000 yuan less. Shen Haotian was very angry at Shen Qian's words and thought what a pitiful person he was and asked without shame to pay off the entire debt. Shen Qian started waving this check and told Shen Haotian that if he did not have this money then he could then pay him this debt. And at that same second, Shen Haotian threw another check on the ground and said that there was another 100,000 yuan there and asked him to take it and leave. Shen Qian said that although the price increase in those years was high, he would not take interest from Shen Haotian since he was a good brother. Shen Qian continued to wave the check in front of Shen Haotian and said that he had left there and his brother did not have to accompany him and could go home. Shen Haotian was very angry with Shen Qian and called him a dog and said that she can only bark and do nothing in this life. After that, Shen Qian took a taxi home and thought about the words of his brother who no longer considered him to be a serious person. Shen Qian thought that as expected, no matter how calm he looked on the outside, he was still in great pain in his heart. The driver asked Shen Qian what happened because he saw him leaving Yan's school and asked if he was a martial artist. Shen said how could he consider himself a master if he studied fighting techniques for 7 years but did not even reach the minimum level of training. The driver told Shen Qian that being such a person is also good because the country supports them well and he could only be a driver. And the news said that there was a murder and robbery in Tingshan Park and the perpetrator had a scar on his face and took a hostage. And according to the information, the killer was a practitioner of the 2nd level of martial art and there were wounds on his body and he was mentally ill. The driver heard this information and said that he was shocked and did the killer really have a 2nd level and said that these cops are all scoundrels. Shen Qian thought about the 2nd level and 50 years ago when the economy was in order, martial artists influenced and changed the world. With the support of the state, craftsmen became the most popular profession in society and they divided the levels into 5 stages. However, their practice required innate talent and despite such demands there were few people who worked there. Physical training was the lowest level in the field of body conditioning which was divided into 9 levels of power and strength. And people wanted to get out of their usual body and become stronger, so they had to practice martial arts no matter what. After the vital force is restored, it will be divided into 4 stages from the initial to the perfect level of a fighter. Each hardening meant a breakthrough to 1 level out of 9, and only a qualified fighter will be able to enter the highest into a special kingdom. Martial arts and practices complemented each other and hand-to-hand combat was studied in schools and it was difficult for them to move to the 1st level. However, high-level skill was very difficult to see in society and it was forbidden to teach oneself after university. This criminal was at the 2nd level of physical fitness and unlike Shen Qian, he was much stronger than him in hand-to-hand combat. The criminal's name was Xu Haiding and he had 5 elements of combat and at that moment the driver told Shen Qian that they had arrived at the scene. Shen Qian thought that at least it was a little secluded and the house was just beautiful and the driver said that Shen was better than the rest. Shen Qian said thank you to the driver and said that he has nothing except this house, which his beloved mother left him during her life. Shen thought that without talent in fighting there was no future and so his family abandoned him and his father gave him only 1,000 yuan a month. Shen Qian thought that now brother Haotian has become the heir of the Shen family and he used to be a loser and 2 years ago he became stronger. Shen Qian thought that it was very strange because Shen Haotian became strong in a very incomprehensible way, but now everything has changed. Shen Qian opened his door and suddenly he froze in surprise and was shocked because he saw something very interesting in his house. Shen Qian saw traces of dirty shoes on his floor and wondered if a thief had broken into his home and what he wanted to steal from there. Shen Qian went home and thought that he didn't have much money left and how could an impudent person steal his last money from him. But at that moment Shen Qian was walking with a knife in his hands but stopped and thought what was this inexplicable thing that he saw. Shen Qian noticed that in his house there was a girl lying on his sofa and he had not seen her before and did not know who she could be. Shen Qian came closer to her and thought where this girl came from at his house and her hands were tied and she was passed out. Shen thought that this girl was very beautiful but he wondered what he was thinking about because now he needed to catch this thief. Shen Qian realized that this is not just a coincidence and he needs to immediately call the police when it is safe and he catches this thief. But suddenly, at that very second, this thief appeared in front of Shen Qian and he stood and looked at him intently and thought about starting action. Shen Qian looked at the thief and thought that he was indeed a clear winner in life and in front of him was a criminal from the news. The thief held a knife in his hands and ordered Shen Qian to stand still and not move and said that otherwise he would cut his throat and finish him off. Shen Qian started shouting to the whole house, but no one heard him, and the thief quickly dealt with him and no one helped him at that moment. The thief took his check from Shen Qian and said that 200,000 yuan was enough for him, and with this money he could quickly leave this city. The thief told Shen that he did not expect that the injuries on his body would be very serious and that even a hand-to-hand fighter would be able to open the wound. The thief asked Shen Qian not to waste his time, and first he will tie him up and hope that these checks are real, otherwise he will finish him off later. After that, the thief tied Shen Qian on a chair and thought that he was in a lot of pain, and if he was strong he would have stopped this thief. Shen Qian thought that in this world without strength they could only be killed, and he realized that now he could not hope for anyone's help. Shen Qian thought that when this thief returned he would immediately kill him, and it was very sad and he did not want to say goodbye to life yet. But when Shen Qian lost faith, at that second the donation system started and Shen Qian was in shock and did not understand what had just happened. Shen Qian began to shake his head from side to side and asked who said this, but there was no one else in the room besides him. And then the system reported that its goal was the cultivation of metal and subordination to the master based on the principle of equality with this object. Shen Qian wondered what kind of system it was, and it reminded him of science fiction, and asked if the system was in his head. The system answered the master and said that this system was inside his mind, and this system had no essence on a par with the spirit of the master. Shen Qian asked why the system was in his mind and why it suddenly appeared, and where did this strange system come from. The system said that there was no information about the system, and the system is connected with the master's child, and the system is connected with the master's spirit. Shen Qian thought how this was possible and why the system was launched right now, and he wanted to get the correct information. The system said that it was always in sleep mode, and during practice it accumulated the necessary energy to launch its master. Shen asked if the system meant that he had been taking those medications for 7 years. This was all because it absorbed his energy. The system told the master that he was right, and it was difficult for him with fights, and what happened was the fault of the system and the master was not to blame. Shen Qian was surprised and asked the system if it was going to continue absorbing his energy for the rest of his life. The system informed the master that it was not going to do this, and after the system started it would no longer charge the master's energy. Shen Qian said that it was great and asked the system to now tell about the benefits and how it could help him. The system said that its advantage was that they were divided into 2 points, and the first was the investment that it would tell him about. The system said that this was a transfer of values like gold, silver and cash, and transforming them into cryptocurrency for his qi. The system said that its second advantage was cultivation, which, with the help of perfection and the skill that Shen possessed, was improved. Shen Qian asked the system if it was some kind of bug, and he was wondering if there were any restrictions on this best ability. The system reported that valuables such as coins, banknotes and everything that belonged to the master could be absorbed only by his touch. The system said that secondly, to increase the level in some art, the master must have at least an initial level. Shen Qian became very interested and asked the system if it could then look at his abilities and what he could do. The system reported that his level was beginner and he needed 10,000 yuan for the intermediate level and from 100,000 to 1,000,000. Shen said that these were solid prices, and if it had launched 2 years ago, he would have immediately become a master of the maximum level. And then Shen Qian looked at the knife that was lying next to him and thought that it was not too late and he had a chance. Shen Qian began to crawl on the floor and thought that he should now try his best and fight for his life to the last. At this time, in some building, people were saying that everyone knew that the young master of the Shen family had no talent in martial arts. The man told the head of Shen that Shen Qian had no progress in martial arts, and now this aspect was valued in the country. Head Shen sat on a chair in his office and said that he was a worthless weakling and asked to test the talents of his adopted children. Everyone thought that Shen Qian was an ordinary child who lived in this world and expected to die without any special ambitions or plans. Shen Qian remembered the words of the students that they said that he entered the 11th grade without exams and on his own terms. Shen Qian remembered that the students said that he should have been expelled and he studied there because he was from a very rich family. Shen Qian almost reached the knife and he thought that was why he was only pretending that he didn't care, thereby deceiving himself. Shen Qian recalled that he asked his man about the practice of martial arts and whether he would be allowed to practice them later. Shen Qian's man told the boss that he was right and he should have continued practicing martial arts to become a fighter. Shen Qian remembered that he then began to resist with himself, but from that moment on he began to train every day. Shen Qian asked his man if it worked differently and wanted to hear useful information about everything from him. But when Shen Qian did not expect this, his man told the boss that things were bad and he had bad news for his master. Shen Qian asked him why he was in such a hurry, and the man said that Haotian suddenly became a martial arts genius at this time. The man said that Haotian had reached the heavenly qi level during night training and was promoted to the first level of body purification. And at that moment, Shen Qian was very surprised by such news and thought how this loser Shen Haotian managed to do this. Shen Qian thought that his evil father was ruthless, and as soon as a replacement appeared, he immediately abandoned him to his fate. Shen Qian picked up a knife and thought that as long as he had a system, he would be able to do something that he could never do before. Shen Qian immediately cut the ropes and freed himself and thought that with this system he could now get out of troubles and problems. Shen Qian thought that it was great, and at that second he heard some sound and realized that it was very bad for him. The thief returned back and began to go home with a bag in his hands and check what was happening with his hostages and end it. Shen Qian turned around and realized that he would not have time to escape from the house, and the thief returned there too quickly and he would not spare any of them there. But Shen Qian took out a card from his pocket and said that fortunately for him, his necessary card with living expenses was still with him. And then Shen Qian asked the system to transfer all funds to a new virtual currency and immediately upgrade him to an advanced level. The system said that the result of the investment was 9,300 yuan, and this is not enough for the new advanced level. Shen Qian realized that he was missing 700 yuan and would not be able to reach even the average level, and the thief was very strong and powerful. Shen Qian immediately ran and, opening his locker, asked the system to take all this little money so that he could rise to the average level. The system informed Master Shen Qian that 462 yuan had now been successfully received from this cabinet. Shen Qian said that it was a disaster and he still lacked 200 yuan, and he was thinking what to do because he didn't have a penny left. But then suddenly the system informed the master that a target for contribution had been noticed and Shen Qian could make a contribution to increase the level. Shen Qian stood next to this girl and looked at her and asked the system if he could make a contribution even if it was not his. The system reported that Shen Qian should contact directly and interrupting the process was prohibited and the time depended on the amount. Shen Qian said that now is not the time to pay attention to this and asked for forgiveness from his sister and hoped that his sister had money. Shen Qian noticed that her clothes had a pocket with buttons inside and it was difficult to tear it off, but he could not hesitate for a second. The system detected 314 yuan that were not owned by the owner, and it took 1 minute to convert this money. Shen Qian sat next to the girl and asked the system to act faster so that they could escape from such a difficult situation. At this moment, the thief returned to the house and wanted to check on Shen Qian and deal with this petty scoundrel and have a heart-to-heart talk with him. The thief was very surprised because he did not notice Shen Qian there and noticed that the chair was lying on the floor and his hostage was able to free himself somehow from there. The thief said, could Shen Qian be able to untie the rope because he tied him up like that, and thought that it was impossible to free himself easily? The thief ordered Shen Qian to go out and not think that by hiding behind the sofa he could hide from him and easily escape from this house. Shen Qian went out to the thief and said that he thought that he would be able to escape and noticed that the system had almost completed the required download. The thief told Shen Qian that he seemed to have underestimated him and he was such a brave man and he didn't expect him to be such a guy. The thief told Shen Qian that now it was time to finish the matter, and at that moment Shen's conversion was completed and he improved. And then the thief's eyes filled with blood and he clenched his fists and told Shen Qian that now he would die and nothing would help him. And at that moment Shen Qian asked the system to upgrade him to the average level of hand-to-hand combat, and immediately he became very strong. Shen Qian also quickly ran up to the thief and their fists collided with each other and a huge roar was heard because they were both strong. The thief was immediately thrown aside and looked at Shen Qian and could not understand how this man could have such an equal effect on him. The thief wondered where Shen Qian got such strength from and he thought that he would be able to destroy him with one blow, but he was very mistaken. And then the system informed Shen Qian that the conversion was completed and his martial art had been upgraded to an average fighter level. Shen Qian smiled and thought that fortunately he had managed to increase his level by the time the thief began to attack him. The thief was very surprised and told Shen Qian that he was very surprised and initially he did not expect that he was hiding his strength from all people. The thief told Shen Qian that he deliberately showed weakness in order to reduce his concentration and then immediately use his strength. The thief told Shen that he almost managed to escape and Shen realized that fortunately he had increased his level, otherwise he would have lost half his life. But Shen Qian realized that even so he could not defeat this thief, and even though he had a wound, he was still at his second level. Shen Qian told the thief that he still had wounds and there was no need for him to fight with him because anyway, he already had all his money. The thief told Shen that he was a very smart man and when he ran away from his hunt he was severely beaten and he gathered his strength and returned. Shen Qian listened to the thief and with a smile on his face asked him not to worry and said that he would not call the police and would not turn him in. But the thief got angry and asked Shen Qian if he really dared to bargain with him and said that he would now get such an insolent. The thief attacked Shen Qian and he told him too much to use the Qigong technique to heal his wounds on his body. The thief told Shen Qian that otherwise he would have slipped away from him and he had no choice and wanted to strike and said that he could go to hell. Shen Qian deftly dodged the thief's blow, but he still managed to lightly catch his neck and he realized that he almost had time to dodge. The thief got angry and asked Shen Qian what kind of trash he was with an average level of hand-to-hand combat who dared to take such a challenge. But Shen Qian was not afraid of his attacks and then suddenly he quickly began to run towards the thief and struck him with a strong blow with his strong head. The thief flew away from Shen Qian a couple of meters and he felt his blow and it hurt him despite such a difference in levels. Shen Qian asked the thief who told him that military hand-to-hand combat was useless because he had been doing it for a long time since early childhood. The thief told Shen Qian that it looks like he should show him what real martial art is and introduce him to a martial artist. And then the thief began to strain his fingers and began to prepare for the technician to teach the upstart a lesson and punish the impudent insolent. Shen Qian looked at the thief in surprise and wondered if he really wanted to use what he just thought of because it is very powerful. And at that moment, the thief began to attack Shen Qian with his bloody hawk strike and jumped high and began to approach the enemy. Shen Qian wanted to meet the thief with his blow, but he failed to do this and he wondered where this thief could suddenly disappear to. And then when Shen Qian did not expect this at all, the thief appeared behind him and told him that he was moving too slowly as a fighter. And then the thief dealt a strong blow to Shen Qian from behind and wounded him and took him by surprise with his incredible technique and speed. Shen Qian was in great pain and realized that he had just made a huge mistake and did not see how the thief cunningly sneaked behind his back. Shen Qian immediately crashed into the wall with all his strength and the thief was very pleased that he managed to inflict such damage on his opponent. But the thief realized that his wound had opened because of this skill and now he could only use a third of his strength and this was dangerous for him. But the thief looked at the defeated Shen Qian and thought that, fortunately, he had already dealt with the enemy and he could not harm. The system notified the master that a large amount of money had been found, the right of which was disputed and it could belong to the owner. And Shen Qian smiled because the system asked the master if he wanted to top up his account and he was very happy about this interesting news. Shen Qian immediately came to his senses and gave his consent to the system and said that she could top up the account now and he was not against it. And then the money with which the backpack was filled began to disappear and it was very surprising and Shen Qian was shocked by this. The thief was very surprised to see this and asked Shen Qian where his money had gone because he had just seen with his own eyes that it was lying on the floor. Shen Qian told the thief that he would upset him and said that he had now of course used all this money and he would not see it again. The thief asked Shen Qian if he was really looking for death and asked him to immediately return his money and called him a petty and cunning thief. Shen Qian asked the thief if it was his money and said that from now on this money belongs to him and he must come to terms with it. Shen Qian immediately asked the system to upgrade his melee and the process of improving it immediately began and he began to feel strength and power. The system reminded Shen Qian that 100,000 crypto yuan was withdrawn to increase the level of an advanced hand-to-hand combat master. The girl on the sofa heard the sounds of the battle between Shen Qian and the thief and immediately began to come to her senses and make some sounds and wake up. A couple of minutes later the girl woke up and could not understand where she woke up and what was happening around her all this time in the house. The thief told Shen Qian that now he would die and began to run towards him with all his might, and Shen stood in a fighting pose and waited for his attack. The girl saw their battle and asked Shen Qian to be careful because this thief was a very dangerous and very cunning person. Shen Qian squeezed his hand and thought that he was confident in himself and he would repel the thief's attack and would not feel the power of his dangerous technique. The thief also tightly clenched his palm and prepared to strike Shen Qian with his blow and thought that now he would surprise the naive fighter. The thief shouted and told Shen Qian that it was useless and he could not match the speed of his fighting technique and his powerful fist. But Shen Qian was not taken aback and immediately delivered a strong blow to the thief's stomach and he became very aggressive and could not be stopped. The thief stood in bewilderment and thought how this was possible, because before that no living person could repel his dangerous attack. Shen Qian dealt a mountain-crushing blow to him and told the thief that this was the last deadly hand-to-hand combat skill in his life. Shen Qian told the thief that he also wanted to tell him that he lost to him because of his money and foolishly fell into his cunning trap. The thief stood for a couple of seconds and did not move, and then he collapsed on the floor and did not move, and it seemed that it was over with him and he went to the next world. Shen Qian thought that thanks to the deposit system he had defeated his first martial arts practitioner and did not believe this event. The girl approached Shen Qian and said that her name was Wuzhen and if in the future he needed her help, he could always contact. Shen Qian asked Wuzhen if she had money and she was surprised by such a question and did not know what to answer him and began to think. Shen Qian told Wuzhen that if she didn't have money, then whatever she said was no longer important and he didn't want to listen to anything. But then suddenly Shen Qian began to feel very bad and his heart began to hurt sharply and he stopped saying the words Wuzhen. Shen Qian immediately fell to the floor and Wuzhen was surprised and asked him what was happening to him and if she could help him with anything now. Shen Qian was in pain and he didn't know what was happening to him because it was some kind of unfamiliar feeling that he couldn't understand. Shen Qian was surprised and realized that he could not control himself and it was very strange and his eyes filled with wild rage. And then Shen Qian grabbed Wuzhen's hand tightly and she was surprised at what he was doing and asked why he grabbed her hand so tightly. Shen Qian asked Wuzhen if he understood correctly that she told him that she would help him with anything if he asked her for this favor. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that he understood her correctly and after a couple of minutes Shen Qian told her that he didn't have enough and wanted more. Wuzhen told brother Shen Qian that she tried very hard and did he really want to continue and didn't want to stop for a second? Shen Qian said that she understood him correctly and he couldn't wait for her to do what he liked so much again. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that he had already eaten more than a dozen bowls of rice and asked if he had always had such a wild appetite. Shen Qian continued to eat and said that he did not know what was happening to him and he was hungry and could not control his appetite. Shen Qian continued to eat food without stopping and Wuzhen said that she thought that he wanted to ask her for something besides food. And after a couple of minutes, Shen Qian put the empty plate on the table and told Wuzhen that he was finally full and the rice was very tasty. Wuzhen was shocked and told Shen Qian that for the first time in her life she saw such a hungry person like him and it was strange. Shen Qian said that actually he doesn't always eat like this and asked her to forget about it and said that now they will get down to business. Shen Qian sat down next to the thief and Wuzhen saw this and asked him what he was going to do with him and which brother came up with the plan. Shen Qian said that of course he wanted to get rid of this body and asked Wuzhen if she would like to help him in this matter with the corpse. Wu Jing got goosebumps after these words and she had things to do and she'd better go to the kitchen and wash the dishes and do other things. Shen Qian thought that according to the routine when killing monsters, this guy should drop something for him after his death. Shen Qian thought that the thief probably didn't have money, but maybe he could give him a set of scrolls with the secrets of various martial arts. Shen Qian began to look for the thief's pockets and at that very second Shen was surprised and thought that what he thought about was really in the pocket. Shen Qian took out a book from there and realized that it was a blood hawk strike technique and he had a feeling that he had turned on cheats. Bloody hawk strike could help Shen Qian advance to the second level and it was better than the rotten hand-to-hand combat technique. Shen Qian asked the system to evaluate this technique and asked how much it would cost him and he wanted to get at least something from this technique. The system gave the answer and she was unable to evaluate this technique since the owner was not familiar with it and did not know anything about it. Shen Qian was not happy about this and said that this system was still not advanced enough and could not answer his question now. Shen Qian put the book in the closet and thought that for now he would leave it there and wait until he had enough money to master it. Shen Qian remembered and asked the system what happened to him a couple of minutes ago and why he was so hungry after the fight with the thief. The system said that by using this system for practice, he can reduce the time, but he cannot ignore the energy consumption. After all, the system extracts energy from the owner Shen Qian in order to make a breakthrough in martial arts, and he learned the truth. Shen Qian realized that martial arts practice required a lot of energy and he needed to accumulate it throughout the day and months. And in order to develop step by step, Shen made a sharp breakthrough in fighting technique, and this was reflected in the fact that energy was taken even from the blood. Shen Qian realized that this was just one of many types of technique, but even its breakthrough could lead to the death of the master. Shen realized that in the future he should be careful and he should not increase the level so quickly because he could die from it. Shen asked the system to tell him what would happen if he now made a breakthrough to the perfect level and how it would affect his health. The system reported that to increase the level of hand-to-hand combat, 1 million yuan is required and the master only had 100,000. Shen Qian said that he didn't care whether he had enough money or not, and he asked the system what would happen to him if he decided to do this. The system could not answer the master because this had never happened before, but it warned him that he could die from exhaustion of the body. Shen Qian realized that this was too dangerous and in the future he should stock up on high-calorie food or pills and drink them then. Shen Qian realized that money was everything and he still didn't have enough for practice and he needed money even for pills and he was poor. Shen Qian began to think what to do with the corpse of this thief, and it would be unpleasant if someone saw him like this on the floor of his house. But immediately after Shen Qian's words, there was an explosion and someone blew up the wall in his house, and this happened a second after his words. Immediately, many soldiers ran into Shen Qian's house and ordered all the people not to move or make sudden movements unless they wanted problems. Shen Qian turned around and froze in surprise and was in shock because exactly a second ago he was thinking about this and did not want exactly this. And then Wuzhen came out to him and asked brother Shen Qian what happened there, because she heard some sounds in this room from the kitchen. The soldiers held Shen Qian at gunpoint and he stood with his hands raised, and when they saw Wuzhen they said that there was another accomplice there. The soldiers immediately ordered their men to capture Wu Wuzhen, and Shen Qian thought that it looked like he would be in trouble because of this thief. After a couple of hours at the station, the man said that he understood everything and they highly appreciated the actions to detain the martial arts master. The man told Shen Qian that they believe that this will be an example for the rest of the people of the new era and they will understand that they need to fight. Shen Qian and Wuzhen listened to the man and Shen asked him if everything was okay now and if they could go home and rest. The man said that they acted bravely during the arrest and helped the police a lot and they are obliged to give them prizes for their courage. The man told Shen that they had decided to give the heroes a medal for their bravery and give them a bonus of 10,000 yuan. The man said that if they had no objections they could sign the document, but Shen Qian said that he had objections. Shen Qian told the man that they had no idea how dangerous the situation was, and then the criminal threatened to kill the lady. Shen Qian told the man that he showed himself very wisely and bravely and then fought a duel with him at the highest level without fear. Shen Qian said that he and the criminal were face to face and their fight was for life and death and it cannot be described in words. And at that time, the criminal told Shen Qian that he would bury everyone in the residential area nearby and take their lives with him to the grave. A policeman heard Shen Qian's interesting story and asked if it was true because it was like an action movie. Shen Qian grabbed the man's hand and told Mr. that his personal safety was of little importance compared to people. And so Shen Qian wanted to make a breakthrough and finally defeated this extremely evil criminal and helped the police a lot. Shen Qian said that therefore it was not about the medal and he was not interested in it and asked if he could simply increase the amount of the prize. The man smiled and told Shen Qian that what he just said was good, he should first report this to his superiors. The man looked at Shen Qian and thought that this young man was a very mercantile person and wanted to get money from them. The man looked at Wuzhen and thought that although this girl looks kind compared to Shen Qian, it was his first time seeing her. The man asked Wu Jin that she was probably scared by this situation and said that he wanted to apologize to her for this incident. Wuzhen told the man that he really shouldn't apologize to her because she was a victim and Shen Qian saved her from this maniac. The man told Wu Jin that he insisted and said that if she needed help from the police, she could contact her at any time. Wuzhen immediately looked at Shen Qian and realized that she should take advantage of this situation and benefit from it for them. Wuzhen began to think about what she could ask him as a reward for what Shen Qian did to the thief and finally came up with. Wu Jin asked the man if they could give her more money and she doesn't need anything else except that it will be enough as a prize. The man was surprised by her answer to his question and her requests and began to think that now young people have changed and they have become very arrogant. After that, they went outside and Shen Qian told Wuzhen that in the end he gave another 50,000 as a bonus and was very stingy. Shen Qian told Wuzhen that she, too, had already received 10,000 and asked why she was still chasing him and following on his heels. Wuzhen told brother Shen Qian that he took 300 yuan from her and never returned the money to her and asked when he wanted to do this. Shen Qian was shocked by such a question and told Wuzhen that he saved her life and was she really as stingy as that uncle? Wuzhen told Shen Qian that he was mistaken and she was not such a stingy person and earned money very hard. He continued to argue with Wuzhen and then Shen Qian's phone rang and he thought who it could be and was distracted from his argument with the lady. Shen Qian received a call from Xiaowan and asked him what happened and then why did he call him at such a time and what did he need from him. Xiaowan told Shen that he heard that he was in trouble and asked him to listen to him and said that he would give him one best advice. Xiaowan told Shen Qian that he should bow to Master Haotian and Shen said that he was fine. Xiaowan told brother Shen that he was doing this for his benefit and tomorrow Haotian had a party and he could come up to him with a few words. Xiaowan told Shen Qian that he remembered how kind he was to him and therefore he hoped that he would not be so stubborn again. Shen Qian said that he had no need after he joined Haotian, he should not help him with advice and other things in the future. Xiaowan asked brother Shen Qian not to talk like that and still listen to his words and advice, but Shen simply ended the call. Wuzhen listened to Shen Qian's conversation and asked if it was his friend and Shen said that his longtime former best friend called him. Wu Jin was surprised and wondered if even men have such former friends and what could have happened to them that they became like this. Shen Qian asked Wuzhen if she needed money and said that he had a job for her and invited her to become his assistant. Wuzhen did not understand what Shen Qian meant and said that she was not going to do anything illegal and was against such things. Wuzhen asked Shen Qian what he was going to do and she was very interested to know his future plans for money. And then Shen Qian pulled himself together and resolutely told Wuzhen that he should get some necessary information that interested him. After this conversation, Wuzhen went home and, having rested, arrived at the place where she and Shen Qian planned to meet at that time. Wuzhen stood and waited for Shen Qian and wondered if this scoundrel had deceived her and how could he do this to her after all the events. Wuzhen had already completely lost faith in Shen Qian and thought that she would go back now, but Shen Qian said that she had come early. Wuzhen was angry with Shen Qian and said that he was late for the meeting and Shen asked her forgiveness and said that he had important things to do. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that he could not make excuses and he had previously mentioned working part-time and asked where she would work. Shen Qian told Wuzhen that she was completely right and they had already arrived at that place and she could start her work today. But Wuzhen froze in surprise and told Shen Qian that he had previously talked about a completely different job and she couldn't imagine the job. Wuzhen looked at the huge mansion in front of her and asked Shen Qian if it was really his mansion and how it was possible. Shen told Wuzhen that he would tell her in confidence and that in fact he was the son of the owner of this mansion and was going to become the heir again. Wuzhen did not believe Shen Qian's words and said that in this world there are no such pitiful rich sons as him and this is impossible. Shen Qian told Wuzhen that if she wanted, she could believe his words, but if not, then it was her problem and asked if she was going inside. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that she believed his words and he told her the complete truth and ran after him and asked only to wait for her. At this time, Haotian's party was being held at the Shen family mansion, and all the influential people gathered there and celebrated a friend's party. The man told the guys that they said that Haotian was going to throw a party and I wonder what he wanted to achieve with this. People said that he really didn't understand and he heard that Haotian had already reached the 3rd level of practice and wanted to brag about it. The man said that didn't Haotian say that he made it all up and how could he suddenly become a genius and a martial artist. And at that moment, a glamorous woman arrived there and the guard told Miss Liang that Haotian had been waiting for her to arrive there for a long time. Miss Liang didn't even pay attention to this security guard and just silently walked past him and started chatting with other guests. The guard thought that Miss Liang was lucky that Haotian wanted to meet her because there was nothing interesting or different about her. Shen looked at this house and asked Wuzhen if she saw that guard and said that she just needed to follow his instructions. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that he was the son of the owner of this mansion and why couldn't he just go there and go inside the house. Wuzhen asked Shen Qian why he needed her help and he told her that he would pay her 500 yuan more than usual. Wuzhen really liked Shen Qian's proposal and she said that he could provide this matter and she would do it 100%. The guard at this time looked at his watch and said that the time had already expired and no one else was expected from the guests and everyone was there. But then Wuzhen asked the guard to wait and said that she needed help because her Xiaobai recently ran into this wonderful house. The guard was surprised and asked Wuzhen who this Xiaobai was and how he could sneak into this house unnoticed because he always guarded him. Wu Jin told the guard that it was such a big puppy and she just saw him run in there and was worried about the cute dog. The guard was surprised by her words and told Wu Jin that they didn't have any dogs there and asked her to just leave and not waste his time. Wuzhen told the guard that she didn't care because Xiaobai was her family and if she lost him then the guard would also have problems. The guard blocked the entrance in front of Wu Jin with his body and said that he had told her for the 100th time that he would not let her inside this house. The guard told Wuzhen that she did not see where this dog ran and if she continued he would be rude and Shen began to make his way there. Shen Qian managed to get past the guard and was grateful to Wuzhen for his help and thought that he had not been in this mansion for a long time. Shen Qian heard that people were saying that now the heir of the family was Haotian and they were wondering where Shen Qian had gone. Shen Qian heard the guests' words and thought that they were upsetting him because before, when they all needed help, he helped everyone. And then Shen Qian heard that the man told all the guests that the head of Shen Haotian was there and asked to respect the wise heir of the family. And at that second Shen Haotian came onto the stage and said good afternoon to all the guests and said that he appreciates all the people in this meeting of his. Shen Haotian said that everyone who was present at this event from now on will be considered his personal friends in the Shen family. People said that they heard that Haotian was a very desperate person and if someone did not come today, then he could be in for trouble. People said that they know well who Haotian really is, and he gives a speech as if he wants to lure everyone away to himself. Haotian said that he invited everyone today because everyone is now children of the new generation and he believed that they would cooperate with them. Haotian said that he had one more piece of news, and since the Shen Family Corporation wanted to cooperate with Liang, he wanted something else. Haotian said that he wanted to talk to Miss Liang Ming about this and people said that it was no wonder that Miss Liang was there. All the guests thought that this was news and did the Shen family and Liang family really want to cooperate and it was very interesting for them. Haotian was waiting for an answer to his question from Miss Lian, because she was simply silent and did not say anything to the head of the family, Shen Haotian. The Haotian man immediately approached Miss Liangming and said that this is what the owner meant and she should respond with something to his words. Miss Liangming told Haotian's man that she herself knew about this and began to think about how she could answer Haotian. But when Liangming did not expect this, Shen Qian told Shen Haotian that he finally found him with difficulty after searching. Haotian was very surprised by these words and began to ask all the people who told him these words and wanted to quickly find this person. And then Haotian saw that Shen Qian was standing in the crowd of people, hidden in a hood, and realized that it was the same brat from their Shen family. Shen Haotian looked at Shen Qian and asked if it was him and why he came there because clearly no one was waiting for him in the house. Liangming turned around and looked at this man and wondered if it really was the past heir Shen Qian himself. Shen Qian showed his face to everyone and told Brother Haotian that he should do him a big favor that he would now ask for. All the guests were surprised if it was Shen Qian and wondered if he wasn't expelled and why did he appear at this brother's party. People asked the others to keep their voices down and said that this was someone else's house and suggested standing and continuing to watch this show. Shen Qian told Brother Haotian that he had no idea how hard it was for his Shen Qian recently and in the last days. Shen Haotian was angry when he saw his brother and asked Shen Qian who let him in there because he had reliable security everywhere in the house. And at that moment, Haotian's guards began to run up to Shen Qian and ordered their people to quickly catch the boss's troublemaker. Shen Qian started to run away from these guards and thought that these stupid guards would never be able to catch such a fast person. The guards could not catch Shen Qian and he jumped far to where all the invited guests of the heir Shen Haotian were standing. And then Shen Qian landed right on the table with dishes and told Brother Haotian that he had no conscience or any honor at all. The guard ordered his men to surround Shen Qian and prevent him from escaping from there and said that he would be very severely punished for this. Shen Qian continued to run away from them across the table, and Hao Tian told him that he was mistaken about him and he was not at all a kind person like him. The guests told Hao Tian if he was really one of those people who hid a knife behind a smile, and that's how he answered them, and they no longer wanted to work with him. Hao Tian was furious and thought that Shen Qian deliberately came there and behaved this way because he just wanted to harm his reputation. And then Shen Haotian ordered his men to stop chasing Shen Qian and said that he had a conversation for this man. Haotian got up from his seat and approached Shen Qian and asked his brother what he needed from him and thought that he would leave from there after helping. Shen Qian told the guards that they heard their boss and now asked them to move away from him because he was out of breath and to rest a little. Shen Qian told brother Haotian a dream. He knew that he was not mistaken in it and asked if he remembered how he changed his diapers since childhood. Shen Qian asked Haotian if he would help him now, and he clenched his fists and thought that it was difficult for him to get rid of his brother. Haotian told Shen Qian that he no longer wanted to listen to this chatter of his and asked what he really wanted from his brother. Shen Qian told Haotian that now he had some problems and could not get enough, not to mention that he still had debts. Shen Qian said that besides, the collector called him and said that if he doesn't give the money, he will come and break his leg and arm too. Shen Qian said that he used to take care of him and now he should repay the favor, and Haotian asked him how much money he needed. Shen Qian told Haotian that he knew that he was generous and would not let his brother get into trouble in the future and would always help him in life. And Shen Qian asked him for 2 million yuan, and Haotian was shocked and thought that if not for the event, he would have beaten Shen Qian. Miss Liangling also looked at Shen Haotian and waited for what he would do now and how he would respond to such a request from his brother. Haotian thought that Shen Qian wanted to show that he would maintain the dignity of the Shen family and would not conflict with him now. Haotian, however, asked forgiveness from all the guests for making himself a laughing stock, and he was engaged in martial arts and business. Shen Haotian smiled and said that some negligence in this upbringing of family members was his fault and he overlooked it. And immediately after these words, Shen Haotian jumped to the side where Shen Qian was now and thought that he would now do something to him. Shen Haotian landed on the table on which his prodigal brother Shen Qian stood and thought that now the guests would change their minds. Haotian signed a check in front of everyone for 500,000 yuan, and this money should have been enough for several years ahead of his life. Haotian wanted to give Shen Qian this check, but his brother asked if he really gave him 500,000 and said that he was really a stingy man. Haotian told Shen Qian that the choice was his and he could either take the money or just leave there and go back to his life. Haotian immediately deliberately dropped the check from his hands onto the table and began to wait for what his brother would do and was sure that now he would pick up the check. Shen Qian looked menacingly at Haotian and he simply smiled in his brother's face and stood next to him and waited for further actions from him. Shen Qian looked at Haotian and knew that he deliberately dropped the check from his hands to humiliate him in front of everyone so that he would pick it up from there. Shen Qian smiled at his brother and told Haotian that he really couldn't hold things securely and something always fell out of his hands. Shen Qian began to pick up the check and told Haotian that it seems that in his young childhood he did not receive proper education and was ill-mannered. But Shen Qian told Haotian that even if he is rich today, he should learn to save, and said that now he was weak. Shen Qian picked up the check from the table and told his brother that valuable things like this check should not be damaged and should be treated with care. Haotian told Shen Qian that he hoped that he would not spend it on unnecessary things and would not become a slacker and would find himself a job. Haotian told Shen Qian that the Shen family would not feed and provide for a person like him forever because he was a disgrace to the family. Haotian stared at Shen Qian and did not take his eyes off him, and he realized that his brother was planning some bad things. And then suddenly Haotian began to press with all his might on Shen Qian's shoulder, and he did not expect that his brother would do this in front of all the guests. Haotian continued to press brother Shen Qian's shoulder and he did not understand why he did this, but he realized that he was very powerful. And at that moment, the table on which they were standing broke and Haotian stuck Shen Qian into the ground only by pressing harder on his shoulder. Shen Qian was surprised and wondered what kind of fierce power it was, but he expected this from a third-level practitioner like brother Haotian. Shen Qian began to get up and fight back against Haotian and began to think that the previous one would have given up and would not have been able to do anything. Shen Qian told his brother that it was only 500,000 and why did he destroy the table if he just wanted to finish him off now. And immediately after these words, Shen Haotian removed his hand from Shen Qian's shoulder and stopped putting strong pressure on him with his hand. Hao Tian asked his brother if he was joking and said that he just saw his weak body and decided to give Shen Qian a shoulder massage. Shen Qian smiled and told his brother that it was some kind of very powerful massage, and he immediately felt that Hao Tian was very strong. Hao Tian asked brother Shen Qian why doesn't he leave now because he took the money, and what else did he need from his beloved brother. Hao Tian said that he still had his own business, and Shen Qian immediately agreed with his brother and said thank you for the money and began to leave. Shen Qian said loudly that he was grateful to his brother Hao Tian for such a gift and said that he did not have to accompany him to the exit. Hao Tian's man approached the boss and said that this Shen is always pestering him about money and asked if they should do something. Hao Tian asked his man to leave Shen Qian alone and ordered him to go and remove the broken table because the holiday was not over. Hao Tian called Shen Qian a fool and asked if he really thought that his money was so easy to get and he didn't know the most interesting thing. Hao Tian said that his blow acts directly on the heart and now he will be able to train, and asked him to spend this money wisely. Shen Qian started to leave from there and thought how cruel his brother Hao Tian was, and he almost suffered from his dangerous actions. Shen Qian thought that his performance was quite good and he hoped that no one would guess that he had improved his martial arts. Shen Qian realized that he had made a great achievement and perhaps Hao Tian suspected something and he was a third-level fighter. Shen Qian looked at this check and thought that now he could finish off Hao Tian because he had this very important money. And then Wuzhen asked Shen Qian if he had obtained the information he needed and how his meeting with Shen Hao Tian went. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that she was very cold at that time and she thought that he ran away from there with her prize and immediately deceived her. Shen Qian smiled and told Wuzhen that he was not that kind of person and immediately took out the money and said that this was her share of 1,000 yuan. Wuzhen was happy and asked Shen Qian if he really was the son of a rich man because it was such a generous gift, and she was pleased. Shen Qian told Wuzhen that he was sorry that the real rich people were not like him and they were all very cunning and greedy people. Wuzhen remembered and told Shen Qian that she almost forgot about it and he also had to give her 314 yuan. Shen Qian was perplexed and told Wuzhen that he had given her 1,000 yuan and from now on he would call Miss a real stingy one. Wu Jin said that this was money for her help and that was her money that she earned and he could not help but return this honest money. And then Wuzhen remembered and told Shen Qian that he said that he would give another 500 as a bonus and he must give 1,500 yuan. After that, the bell rang at Yanbei High School and all the students headed to where the most interesting events in the school took place. The students said that they had to hurry up in order to still have time to look at it, and his friends asked him to wait for them too. The students managed to reach this place and told his friend that the show was about to start and he should be ready for this event. The students looked at how two men fought with each other and said that it was cool qualifying exams for the elite class. The two men stood opposite each other and analyzed their opponent's strengths and weaknesses to launch their powerful attack. The fighter with purple hair was the first to attack and with a swing wanted to hit the enemy with all his might so that he would lose consciousness. But suddenly his opponent disappeared in front of him and the fighter launched his blow into the air and wondered where his opponent could have gone because he was standing there. And then he appeared behind the fighter and said that his position was weak and how he could teach him to put all the strength into his blow. The fighter told the opponent with purple hair that he would now give some lessons and show a master class and hit him in the stomach. And then there was a huge roar because the blow of this fighter was very powerful and strong and the opponent could not withstand such a pace of the fighter. The fighter hit the wall with all his might and the presenter said that Fenda Wei was defeated and the exam was already over for him. The host said that Gao Xiaobo was next and the man asked the director whether it was too strict to ask the teacher to select students. He said that even if the teacher held back at the first level, the students could not cope even with the teacher's 3 techniques. The director said that, alas, this had never happened before, but once a student decided to give a bribe and they resorted to changes in the school rules. The teacher was surprised and asked the director about what kind of bribe he meant, and the director said that it happened exactly 2 years ago. The director said that in the past, in training classes, students competed with each other to identify talents to recruit. Every year many students took part and even those who were not accepted into the High School of Martial Arts also came. The director said that as a result, a student named Shen Qian began to rely on his family's money and bribed all his opponents. After the battle with him, Shen Qian's rivals pretended that they were in great pain and Shen was actually a very strong fighter. The principal said that in the end this student did not pass even the worst martial arts school, which became a shame for Yanbei High School. The director told the teacher that it was because of this that they changed the rules, and now the teacher personally evaluated all the students in the school. The teacher smiled and told the director that this Shen Qian was truly a genius, because not everyone could come up with such an approach to business. At this time, there should have been a guard at the front entrance of Yanbei High School to ensure that no one could enter there. Shen Qian was told, and he knew that this guard who was now sleeping at his workplace had a second level of martial arts. Shen Qian was climbing over the wall of the school and thought that he needed to be careful, and if he heard a noise, he would immediately detect it. Shen Qian finally climbed over the wall of the school and, without looking at his feet, jumped down with all his might and thought that everything would be fine. But suddenly Shen Qian accidentally stepped on a tree branch and it cracked, and he realized that he had just made a huge mistake. The security guard immediately heard the noise and woke up and thought who was making noise outside, and realized that he had to check what was happening there. The security guard opened the door and went out into the street and asked what kind of brat was skipping classes at school and making noise outside trying to escape from there. And at that moment something caught the guard's attention, and he was surprised because he didn't expect to see this person there and didn't know what she needed. The guard saw that student Liangming was standing in front of him and thought what she was doing there alone and why she was quietly looking straight at him. Student Liangming bowed her head and apologized to the guard for interrupting his lunch and disturbing him now. The guard said that there was nothing wrong and asked the student Liangming if she had passed the exam to enter the elite class. Liangming told the guard that she had passed the exam, and at that moment Shen Qian stood behind them and quietly listened to their conversation on the sidelines. The guard told Liangming that it was cool, and he knew that she was so talented and in the future she would even be able to surpass him in strength. The guard said goodbye to student Liangming and said that then he would go and continue to sleep, that is, work, because he was active. Shen Qian observed the guard's behavior and thought that such an adult man acted like a teenager next to the Liangming student. After that, Shen Qian approached the student Liangming and told her thank you for everything and for helping him out from that school security guard. Liangming asked Shen Qian if he really came to school today to take the qualifying exams for the elite class. Shen Qian told student Liangming that she said everything correctly and he just wanted to try his luck in this class recruitment exam. But Liangming told Shen Qian that the rules have changed this year and he will no longer be able to bribe anyone in this middle school. Shen Qian asked the student Liangming to trust him and said that this year he would rely only on his strength and his super intelligence. Student Liangming told Shen Qian that she would trust him this time and then she would wait for him in class, and said goodbye to the student. Shen Qian thought that she helped him again, and he remembers that he didn't even repay her for her kindness last time, and that was very bad. Shen Qian quickly ran to where the exams were being held and said that he had no time to waste and needed to hurry up for his goal. At this time, the teacher of this high school stood in front of the students and asked them if anyone else wanted to take the test with him. The candidates looked at this teacher and realized that this teacher was too ruthless and did not spare any of his rivals. All the students were very afraid of this teacher because they heard that those who lost to him were beaten to death, and it was very cruel. The teacher told the students that this year's course was the worst he had ever taught, and they all disappointed him. The teacher told the students that if there were no more people willing to take these exams, then they were over and they could all go home. But at that second someone from the crowd of students told the teacher to wait a couple of minutes and said that he was interested in participating. The students looked at each other and did not understand which of them was so brave and challenged the most dangerous teacher of all in the school. And then Shen Qian entered the room and asked the teacher to wait and said that he wanted to try and measure his real strength. The students remembered that at Yanbei Middle School, Shen Qian's name was often mentioned and they always told the class a story about him. The director asked the students to let him tell them that they shouldn't be like Shen Qian's student, and they thought, is this really happening again? Every freshman heard Shen Qian's name, and the school principal always told the students that if it weren't for the rules, he would have finished him off. The students had heard many bad stories about this student, and Shen Qian raised his hand and told the teacher that he wanted to participate today. The director quickly called Shen Qian into his office and asked what he was going to do again, and said that he knew that Shen was bad. But Shen Qian turned his back to the director and said was it really Director Liu, and said that he thought that he had been retired for a long time. Principal Liu was furious with this student and wanted to attack Shen Qian. He asked how he dared to return to this top school. The teacher tried his best to restrain the director and asked him to just calm down and said that all his students were looking at him now. The students were surprised whether this was the same Shen Qian about whom the teacher spoke every day and so often and could not calm down. The student told his friend that he was right, and for 2 years every day they were told about Shen Chang, and he had already become a legend of the school. At this time, the teacher looked at how all the students were discussing this Shen Qian and thought that they all considered him some kind of hero. The teacher looked at the students and thought that today he wanted to personally talk to this Shen Qian and find out what he is like. Shen Qian looked at the school students and thought, and it seemed to him that after graduating from school he became more famous than before. The director asked Shen Qian if he had not already studied at this school and asked what he was doing there then and what he needed from them. Shen Qian told the director that he was glad to see him again and he wanted to take part in the selection process for entering the elite class. The director heard Shen Qian's words and told him not to even think about it, and it was better to immediately go home and take a break from all these things. The teacher continued to hold the director so that he would not attack Shen Qian and told him that he needed to maintain his image. Shen Qian asked why not, because according to the regulations, students had the right to re-enter there after taking part in the certification. The director told Shen Qian that he said no and that's all, and Yanbei School is a place where you can practice fighting and not mess around. The director told Shen Qian that he was not suitable for martial arts, so he could look for something else to do in a completely different place. Shen Qian wondered if he would really need to go to management to complain about the director for bluffing him himself. But at that moment, someone asked the teacher for Shen Qian to also participate in the exam, and the director noticed that it was Teacher Lin. Teacher Lin said was it really the same Shen Qian, and he had heard about him for a long time and the students also always repeated his name. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that, unfortunately, when he was studying, he was not able to cross paths with him because then he taught other classes at school. Teacher Lin said that he most despises people who look down on others because of their wealth and family wealth. Teacher Lin said that unfortunately he didn't get the chance to teach him personally, but he wanted to make him understand everything he needed today. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that he was trash, tainted the history of Yanbei School, was dependent on his family and was a disgrace. The students were wondering if Teacher Lin Shen Qian would beat him to death and thought that he would not dare to go one-on-one with him. The students said that of course Shen Qian could not defeat this Teacher Ling, and it seemed like he wanted to bribe and pass the exam. Shen Qian looked at the teacher and asked if he understood correctly that this gentleman's name was Lin and if he could address the teacher like that. Shen Qian told Master Ling that since he said such words, would he dare to make a bet with him if he was so brave? Teacher Lin was surprised and thought about what kind of bet Shen Qian wanted to make with him, because he could not assume anything to such a teacher. Shen Qian told Master Ling that he understood him correctly and if he looked down on rich people then they would bet on money. Shen Qian told Teacher Ling that if he passed the exam, he would have to pay him 10,000 yuan and this was his personal condition. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that he had an interesting condition and asked what would happen if he himself lost the bet and did not pass the exam. Shen Qian asked Teacher Ling not to worry and said that he would not be at a disadvantage if he failed the exam, but on the contrary, he would be happy. And then Shen Qian took out a card from his pocket and told Teacher Ling that if he loses the bet, he will immediately give him that 1,000 yuan. The students watched their verbal duel with interest and Shen Qian asked Teacher Lin if he agreed to such conditions in this bet. But the director intervened in their conversation and said enough and it was an exam and asked if they realized where they both were now. The director immediately stood up and told Teacher Ling Ji that he himself forbade him to argue with Shen Qian and said that it was bad. Teacher Lin told the director that he shouldn't do this and if he wins he will pay the same amount, and the director was very angry with him. Teacher Lin told the director that the student may refuse his bet, but he cannot help himself and this is character. Teacher Lin extended his hand and said that because Shen Qian was a student and he was a teacher and could not be the first to refuse the bet. Teacher Lin clenched his fist and asked the principal to just trust him and said that he would try not to let their high school down. The assistant told the director that he knew what Teacher Lin Ji's character was and he would not be able to refuse the bet in front of the students. The assistant told the principal that Teacher Lin could not do this because his dignity as a teacher was now at stake. The director asked Teacher Lin not to exceed his strength beyond the first level and if Shen's life was in danger he would intervene. Teacher Lin asked the director not to worry and said that he promises that he will not kill Shen Qian and will keep a good eye on him. The director told Shen Qian that even if Ling was holding back, his experience and skills were far beyond his imagination. Shen Qian asked the director not to worry and said that he himself would be responsible for his actions and everything would be fine. The students couldn't believe that Shen Qian really dared to take part in the exam, and they had never seen such an evil teacher. The students said that they were very scared for Shen Qian's life, and if they didn't kill him, they would definitely cripple him, and this was accurate information. The disciples said that it was indeed Shen Qian's style to make such a mess right after returning, but she was interested. Shen Qian stood in the boxing ring in front of Teacher Lin, and they prepared for the fight, and all the students of the school were waiting for this fight. The referee raised his hand, and the student thought about Shen Qian, and she wanted to know what surprises he had prepared for them and how he wanted to win. And then the referee lowered his hand down and told the fighters that they could start this fight, and everything was ready for this battle. Ling Ji was a certified teacher from Yanbei High School, and he was level 6, and he asked Shen Qian if he was ready. Shen Qian was a student at Yanbei Middle School, and it was rumored that he had recently started practicing martial arts and was waiting for an attack. The student watched their fight and thought that even in any other scenario, Shen Qian would not be able to defeat this Teacher Ling. Teacher Lin froze in the air and said that now he is using the first technique, and a lot of palms have begun to appear on him. The director was shocked and thought that Teacher Lin really used the Buddha's 1,000 flowers technique, and it was a very powerful start. The assistant said that the 1,000 flowers of the Buddha created the illusion of 1,000 hands from which it was impossible to defend, and it was strong. Teacher Ling began to approach Shen Qian and wanted to strike with this technique and thought that now everything would be over. Shen Qian realized that Master Lin was very fast, but he was also not a weakling, and he could also surprise a master like Lin. And then suddenly Shen Qian put a block in front of himself and defended himself from Teacher Lin's blow and told him that it was all useless. The students wondered if Shen Qian had blocked Teacher Ling's blow, and he could clearly see Teacher Ling's movements and immediately defend himself. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that he had a good reaction and surprised him and was well prepared for this fight and exam. Shen Qian asked the teacher if this was all he was capable of, and that the strike, which was limited to the first level, had its drawbacks. Teacher Lin asked Shen Qian if his previous teacher told him that he shouldn't be such an arrogant person. Shen Qian apologized to the teacher and said that he simply often said that he despises the rich, that's why he treated him like that. The student thought that this fool Shen Qian was doing something, and the teacher's anger would not bring him any benefit but would only complicate his matter. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that it was very good, and now he will try this technique, and began to prepare his dangerous technique. The assistant director was surprised and wondered if Teacher Lin was now preparing a special technique called the White Monkey Fist. The director told the assistant that if Buddha's 1,000 flowers were designed for attentiveness, then the monkey's fist was designed for strength. The director said that even though the basic skills are not stable enough, the slightest deviation from the angle will not be able to block this blow. The assistant told the director that the complexity of the technology was too high and it exceeded the assessment requirement, and it was alarming. The director said that Shen Qian seems to know no boundaries, and he needs to be taught a lesson so that in the future he will be more humble and respectful. Teacher Lin stood and prepared to strike Shen Qian with his White Monkey Fist technique, and he immediately ran towards his enemy. Teacher Lin continued to run towards Shen Qian with all his might, and he prepared the White Monkey technique to the end and thought that this was the end. Shen thought that this was great because without combat experience it was difficult to achieve a better level, and the condition for this was practice in battles. But Shen Qian was an exception, and thanks to the system, he could not think about practicing and studying techniques, and he could win the Ling teacher. And then Shen Qian used the 8th technique of rotating his arms, and, as in the previous technique, the delay can change the enemy's movements. Shen Qian realized that this was his chance and immediately stuck Teacher Ling into the ground with the help of his technique, and he was very surprised by this. The student froze in surprise and was in shock and could not find the right words for this because she thought that it was impossible. The assistant asked the director if he had seen this, and Shen Qian was now using his technique to defend against the White Monkey technique. The director shouted at his assistant and said that he saw everything and was not a blind person, and it was very exciting and powerful. The director was amazed by his level, and Shen Qian's level of hand-to-hand combat is not only advanced but also the most difficult to fight. Teacher Lin could not come to his senses after the blow and asked Shen Qian if he really had an advanced level along with his skills. Shen Qian asked if they thought that he was just a brat who was not capable of learning martial arts, and that was a mistake. Shen Qian said that he knew that many people said behind his back that he was a brat who was never capable of learning martial arts. But that's why Shen Qian was there, and besides the bet, he wanted to prove to everyone that all the men of the Shen family are honest and strong people. Shen Qian got angry and pointed his finger at all the students and said that they could use any of the most powerful techniques. He is ready. Shen Qian said that if he retreats even one step, he will leave the Shen family, and the students realized that he was a brave and tough fighter. The students wondered if they themselves had misunderstood Shen Qian all this time, because now he seemed like a completely different guy. Shen Qian asked the disciples not to forget that if he receives one more blow, he will lose thousands of yuan to them and they will become rich. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that now everything was clear to him, and he asked for forgiveness for his words earlier but warned Shen Qian. Teacher Lin said that to show his respect, this blow is the strongest he can use at the first level. The director asked Lin Zhu if he was crazy, and this is an exam and you can't use the great mantra support from the advanced level. But then the assistant told the director that he might know the reason why Teacher Lin behaves this way and wants to win. The assistant said that they paid Teacher Lin's salary to his wife, and perhaps because of this the teacher wanted to get 100,000 yuan so much. The director said that the power of support of the white mantra is extremely great, but it has a drawback and it accumulates energy for a long time, and this is bad. The director said that this can be avoided by those who have rich combat experience, and Shen Qian has an advanced level and experience in battles. The assistant said that since he constantly avoids to save his money and does not want to give it to some student. The assistant said that the way for Teacher Lin to win is to use this technique now, and the director asked what he was talking about. Teacher Lin immediately jumped and prepared to use a dangerous technique and asked Shen Qian for forgiveness and said it for the sake of his money. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that he could see because he would now show him a real technique that he might not have seen before. Shen Qian looked directly into Teacher Ling's eyes and began to think about how he could evade this very powerful attack from Teacher Ling. And at that very second, Teacher Lin landed on the ground and broke it into pieces, and fragments from the ground flew in different directions of the room. The director and his assistant froze in surprise and could not believe their eyes, and that this happened right before their eyes. The student was also shocked and wondered if this Shen Qian was capable of such things, because she did not expect this from him at all. And then Shen Qian began to clap and said that Teacher Ling's blow was simply amazing, and he was amazed by his strength and power in his hands. Shen Qian managed to dodge Teacher Ling's blow and told him that he scared him to death, and fortunately he was able to react quickly. All the students of Yanbei Middle School froze in surprise and could not believe that Shen Qian fought with Teacher Ling so mockingly. The disciples asked their friends if Shen Qian had just dodged his blow, and they agreed with him but could not explain it. Teacher Lin couldn't believe that he couldn't hit this Shen Qian and thought maybe there was some kind of magic or mysticism there. Shen Qian approached the referee and said that he had taken 3 blows and asked if he had passed the exam, and the referee could not answer him. Teacher Ling was furious and told Shen Qian to shut up and said that he had told him in the beginning that he would not dodge his blow. Shen Qian turned around and told Teacher Ling that he was just joking and asked if he really believed it and it was funny. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that he recently told him that he wants to prove that all the men of the Shen family are honest and strong. Shen Qian told Teacher Ling that he had already been kicked out of the Shen family, so it didn't count, and he was actually telling everyone the truth. Shen Qian said that in addition, he thought that the guys from that Shen family were not really men and were cowards and liars. The student thought that of course it was a typical Shen Qian, and she already thought that he had changed during this time and became more mature. Master Lin told Shen Qian that he was a deceiver, and if he had any honor then he should take another blow from the mantra. And when no one expected this, Shen Qian immediately agreed with this Teacher Ling and said that he agreed and accepted his condition. Teacher Lin was very surprised that Shen Qian accepted his condition so quickly and without fear, and he realized that he was a very brave man. But Shen Qian told Master Ling that the bet amount was increasing and he now had to give him 100,000 yuan if he lost the bet. Teacher Ling got angry and told Shen Qian that he was a rascal, but he thought it over carefully and said that he agreed to his condition. The director approached them and said that 3 blows were withstood, and according to the rules, Shen Qian passed the test and passed the exam. Shen Qian said thank you to the director, but Teacher Lin couldn't calm down and wanted to tell the director that they weren't finished yet. The principal told Teacher Lin that he understood him, but as a teacher he should set an example for others by following the rules and not breaking them. Teacher Lin understood the director, but he said that in addition, the two of them openly made a bet and brazenly violated the traditions of the Yenbei school. The principal told Teacher Lin that he was suspended for a week and Shen was fined 50,000, which would be deducted from the bet. Shen Qian was shocked by such news and told the director that he earns money only with his skills and does not violate anything. But the director approached Shen Qian and patted him on the shoulder, asked his student to calm down and said that now he would explain everything to him. The director said that Teacher Lin Ji in the future will be an elite class teacher and Shen will study there and it is better for him to retreat. Shen Qian agreed with Principal Lu and said that he realized that there should be no money disputes between teachers and students. Director Lu told Shen Qian that he was the same calculating and smart person as before and he recognized his talent and skills. Teacher Lin at this time stood quietly on the sidelines and could not find any other words for the fact that he lost to some student in front of the whole school. Shen Qian gaped and thought that he was very glad that finally it was all over and he could go home and relax on the sofa. But when Shen Qian was leaving there, Master Lin asked him to stay there and said that he wanted to tell him something before he left. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that he was ready to participate in a bet and lose and asked him to tell him the card number and he would send him money. Shen Qian smiled and said thank you to Teacher Lin and showed him the receipt and said that everything was ready and he didn't have to worry about it. Teacher Ling told Shen Qian that this time he was indebted to him and said that after the start of the school year he would take care of him. Shen Qian thought that he had not even started studying at this school yet, but he had already quarreled with the teacher and was thinking what could he do now. After that, Shen Qian returned home and rested after a long and hard day and went to Yenbei school the next day. Shen Qian wandered through the corridors of this school and thought that how quickly time flies, because just recently he studied in high school. Shen Qian had already entered the elite class and found his office where classes were held and went there to start his school year. But as soon as Shen Qian opened the door to the room, a bucket fell in front of him and almost touched him and he could become wet now. Shen Qian looked at the bucket that the students placed for him and thought that it was very naive on the part of the students. And then Shen Qian heard the students ask each other if it wasn't their coward who was afraid of everything in the world and even the wind and mountains. The students told Shen Qian that he should be incredibly ashamed and how could a person like him enter the elite class with them. Shen Qian entered the class and wanted to sit down and the students said that they felt sorry for him and that he was a scum of society and just a nobody. The students looked at Shen Qian and said that it was because of him that Teacher Ling was removed from his position because he was the best teacher. Shen Qian didn't pay attention to the disciples' words and just wanted to sit down, but suddenly he discovered something strange in the place. Shen Qian looked at his chair and noticed that there was no part where he was supposed to sit and the students deliberately did this. But then someone asked Shen Qian to sit next to her and he turned around and could not understand if there was really a student who treated him well. It was disciple Liangming and she told Shen Qian that there was no one next to her and therefore he could sit in this place without any problems. Shen Qian sat next to Liangming and told her that she was still the same as before and he wanted to thank her for her help. Shen Qian asked Liangming for forgiveness and the teacher asked his students to remain quiet because they were disturbing him from teaching his lesson. The teacher told the students that Teacher Lin would not be able to teach his classes for a week and during this time he himself would replace him. Shen Qian was interested and asked Liangming if she was afraid to communicate with him because the other students, on the contrary, avoided communication. Liangming told Shen Qian that she didn't care because she herself was an outcast there and was used to the fact that no one talked to her either. The teacher asked the students to open the textbook to page 48 and Shen told Liangming that he understood her and this was the elite. Liangming told Shen Qian welcome to the elite class and he thanked her for always helping him with everything. After all the classes, Shen Qian returned home in rainy weather and thought that this was not how he imagined the elite class. And after a couple of minutes, Shen Qian finally reached his home and thought that now he could calm down after such stress. Shen Qian walked into his house and immediately threw his backpack on the sofa and sat down on the sofa and thought that it was good that Liangming was in class. Shen Qian thought that this elite class was simply terrible and all the students in the elite class were spoiled and terrible people. Shen Qian recalled that the assistant principal told him that he had missed a lot of classes and needed to take the exams again. Qian asked the teacher if this was really necessary because he thought that practical skills were enough and theory was not needed. The teacher told Qian that practical strength was good, but together with theory, he could hone his strength simply to unlimited. Qian grabbed his books and told the teacher that he would now study hard to achieve what he also wanted to perfect. And at the moment, Qian began to take books out of his backpack and thought that he had a lot of homework and how would he manage to do everything. Qian thought that it would be great if someone could help him write these assignments or at least help him a little with them. But at that very second someone knocked on Qian's door and he immediately thought that it could be knocking on his door at such a very late hour. And when Qian opened the door, he saw that Wuzhen was standing there and she was excited and asked Qian to help her now. Qian was surprised and asked Wuzhen what happened and why she was so worried, but she quickly ran into his house and pushed him. Wuzhen told Qian that she would explain everything to him later and said that someone was chasing her and she barely escaped from these thieves. Wuzhen entered the house and immediately closed the door and asked brother Qian just not to let these people grab her and she begged him. And as soon as Qian closed the door, a second later they started knocking heavily on his door in the middle of the night and they continued for a long time. Wuzhen at that time hid behind the wall in Qian's house and only asked him to be quieter and not make unnecessary loud sounds. The people outside Qian's door kept knocking on his door non-stop so that he would open the door for them and there were a lot of these people there. Qian immediately opened the door and asked these people why they were knocking on his door and didn't they really see what time it was at night? People told Qian that they were looking for one student and she seemed to run to his house and they thought that she went to this house. Qian asked the guys which student they meant and what family they were from and he said that he was alone in his house. Qian told people that he was not the kind of person who liked female students and said that he had seen such scams and told them to leave. The man told his boss to take a look at this house and it looked like Qian was also wealthy and they better not disturb him. The boss of the people told friend Qian that they were brother Li's people and that student owed them money and they hoped for an understanding. Qian asked the people if this student really owed them money and asked what they wanted from him then and what they needed. Qian asked people whether they thought that he would help other people's poor who were not even able to pay off their debt. The boss of these people told Qian that he was right and asked for his forgiveness for disturbing him and then immediately left there. The man was perplexed and told the boss that they clearly saw that this student went in this direction and seemed to have entered the house. The boss told his people that everything was in order and asked people to go back and check this guy based on their tips. Qian saw these people off and immediately slammed the door and realized that he came out of this situation well and it seemed they believed him. Wuzhen immediately looked at Qian from around the corner and asked if those evil people who were chasing her and wanted to grab her had left. Qian asked Wuzhen to stop talking nonsense and asked what was really happening and wanted to hear only the truth from her. Wuzhen sat on the sofa and told Qian that everything was her father's fault and because of him she suffered so much and always ran away from these people. Wujin said that her dad was addicted to alcohol and gambling, and when he wasn't drinking at home, he was playing on the street and losing everything. Wujin said that every time he needed to pay debts, he ran away from home and this time he contacted influential people. Wujin said that when they broke into their house to personally seize her father, he was not at home because, as always, he ran away somewhere. Wujin was alone at home and she was very scared when she saw that healthy people had broken into her house and they had bad intentions towards the family. The man told Yujin that if her dad ran away, then let his daughter pay for his debts and in Tongza they were already waiting for their money. Wujin was not at a loss and immediately got up and quickly ran away from the house and these people did not want to let her escape and began to chase her. Wuzhen bowed and told Qian that she was very sorry and would leave there a little later when these people stopped looking for her there. Wuzhen told Qian that if these people come to him, he should say that he does not know this thief and he will not be drawn into this. Wuzhen told Qian that everything was fine and she would still find a way to pay off her father's debt and everything would be fine in the future. And then Wuzhen began to leave from there and Qian asked her where she was going at such a late time and there were these people outside. Wuzhen turned around and thought that Qian had just told her and was he really caring for her and being a true friend? Qian asked Wuzhen about the money that her unkind father had to pay and whether it had anything to do with her and what she would do. Qian told Wuzhen that his house was big and there were many free rooms and she asked if she could stay there. But Shenqian smiled evilly and told Wuzhen that free cheese is only in a mousetrap and she will need to pay him something. Wuzhen was very scared and told Shenqian that she knew that something was wrong there and asked if he also needed her body. But suddenly Shenqian said that the price would be much worse than she could imagine and he was not sure that she would withstand this matter. And at that moment Shenqian threw a stack of books in front of Wuzhen and she was shocked because she was thinking about completely different things he was doing. Shenqian told Wuzhen that from now on she would help him with his homework and that was his only condition. Early in the morning in the mansion, a man was telling Master Shenhaotian that he had just received important information about brother Shenchang. The man told Shenhaotian that he learned that Shenqian had been accepted into the elite class of Yanbei High School and passed the exam. Haotian said that he didn't think that after taking these 500,000, he would immediately spend it to do this trick again and bribe people. Haotian said that this garbage really hasn't learned anything and if the insect doesn't stop resisting it will be crushed. The next day, the students said that they all knew Shenqian and a conflict arose between him and Master Haotian from the Shen family. The disciples said that Master Haotian had long wanted to do something with Shenchang, but because of his position, he could not do anything. The student told his friends that if they take the initiative and help Haotian, it will definitely play into their hands in the near future. A friend asked the student that Shenqian was also from the Shen family and did Haotian really want to kill his own brother from his family? The student asked whether Shenqian was worthy of this surname, because he was just trash who had achieved nothing in battles for 7 years. The disciples' friends started laughing and said that they were not afraid of Shenqian and told the boss that they would always follow him everywhere. The disciples said that let them deal with Shenqian today without further ado and there are many ways to finish him off without his blood. The students said that they should force him to quit his studies and then they could go to Master Haotian and ask him for a prize for this. But then Shenqian suddenly appeared behind the students and said that he did not expect that the three of them would be the most active people in the school. Shenqian asked the disciples since they decided to deal with him, maybe they should go to a secluded place because it was not the best place. The students asked Shenqian how he knew about such places and said that this is one of the few places where there are no surveillance cameras. The students told Shenqian that if they beat him to death there, the school would not do anything to them because there was no evidence. Shenqian was surprised and asked the students if there were really no surveillance cameras in this place in the school and this was very strange for him. The disciples asked Shenqian if he was really scared and said that it was his own fault because no one told him to come there. Shenqian exhaled and told the naive students that they had completely misunderstood him and he meant a completely different conclusion. And then Shenqian took a fighting stance and told the students that since there were no cameras there, he could not hold back in battle with them. And immediately the screams of the students began to be heard in the school and Shen told them that he thought that he could warm up and did not think that they were weaklings. Shen told the students that they were at an advanced level but he didn't even break a sweat while fighting with them and he was very bored. The disciples sat on the ground beaten and asked Shenqian not to beat them anymore and said that he completely misunderstood their intentions. The disciples told Shenqian that in fact they did not know at all that he would be offended by them because they did not want to harm their friend. Shenqian asked if they really didn't lie to him and really admired him so proudly and he was glad to hear such words addressed to him. The students told Shenqian that he understood everything correctly and they admired him very much and asked him to let them go and they would not bother him. Shenqian told the student that this would not work because they were all classmates together and it would not be good to constantly avoid him. And then Shenqian smiled evilly and told the students that he had another solution to this problem and they would definitely like it. Shenqian collected the three students' money and asked if they only had 5,000 yuan and how they went to school. The disciples told Master Shenqian that it was all their money, but besides the money they also had a blood qi pill if he needed it. Shenqian put the money in his pocket and told the students that it was not enough but it will do and he began to leave from there and said goodbye to them. Shenqian told the disciples that the next time they see each other, they can consider themselves great friends who value friendship. All the students stood quietly and agreed with all Shenqian's words and said that he could take his time and wished him a good day. The disciple asked his boss why this Shenqian suddenly became such a strong fighter and how they could now deal with him. The boss of the students smiled and told his friend that he had another way to force Shenqian to leave this school and it was brilliant. And then the students went to the teacher's room at Yanbei Middle School and the boss told his friends that they should look very pitiful now. The students came to the director and said that newcomer Shen Qian beat them just like that and was a scoundrel, and asked why he didn't take action. But at that moment Shen Qian was standing next to the director and he recorded on his phone how the students said that they would study Shen today. The students said that they had many ways to finish off Shen Qian without bloodshed, and the director was shocked by these students. Shen Qian asked the students if they were there too and said that he had just played an interesting recording to the school principal. The director was very angry and began to shout at the students and ordered all three to immediately explain themselves for their vile and cunning act. The students asked the principal for forgiveness and said that they were simply mistaken and something in their minds was clouded and they did not know what they were doing. The students told the principal that Shen Qian did not actually beat them and that they were, on the contrary, the best friends in this school. The director told the students that the three of them would stay there and explain to him why they pretended to be beaten and wanted to frame Shen. And after a couple of minutes, the students massaged Shen Qian and he said that it was very good and he liked everything and relaxed. The disciples brought him coffee and told Shen Qian that they admitted that they had made a mistake and could pay him and asked him to forgive them. Shen Qian asked the students why there was such a rush, because the director said that in order to avoid punishment they only need his forgiveness. Shen Qian told his disciples that he was not as cruel as he seemed at first glance and they should only show him their good intentions. But at that moment, some student appeared in the room and distracted Shen Qian and asked if he could distract him for a while and talk. The student told Shen Qian that he wanted to apologize to him on behalf of all their classmates who caused him trouble. Shen Qian was surprised and wondered why this student wanted to apologize to him for the other middle school students who were fighting. Shen Qian asked the student who this man was who he had not seen in class before and wanted more information about the guy. The student said that his name was Zhang Chaoyu and he was number 1 in this school and he could not attend classes and therefore he did not see him. Zhang Chaoyu told Shen Qian that he had talked to the rest of the class and they realized that it was wrong to make fun of newbies. Shen Qian thought that he didn't know why, but Zhang Chaoyu was the one he didn't want to mess with the most and he seemed to be strong. All the disciples told brother Zhang Chaoyu that he was the best and they did not believe that he stood up for them and protected them no matter what. Zhang Chaoyu said that these three students also admit their mistakes and asked him to stop bullying these students. Shen Qian told Zhang Chaoyu that he understood him and forgives the students and thought that this student was one of the bad guys and he was afraid of him. After that, it was lunch and the teacher was telling everyone that all practitioners must practice to pass the exam this weekend. The teacher said that if any of them placed in the top 3, he would receive a priceless recovery pill as his reward. Shen Qian realized that this pill was much stronger than a pill like blood qi and that was exactly what he needed to become stronger. Shen Qian thought it was worth it, but he believed that it was useless for him to rely only on his hand-to-hand combat and technique. But then a student appeared in front of him and asked if it was brother Shen Qian and he heard that 3 of his friends had problems with him. Shen Qian found out that Zhu Jiatian was standing in front of him and asked this man what he needed from him and why he stood in front of him. Shen Qian remembered that Zhu Jiatian used to constantly hang around him and seemed to have no opinion because he always agreed. Shen Qian remembered that after Shen Haotian took his place as heir, this Zhu Jiatian immediately sided with him. Zhu Jiatian told Shen Qian that he heard that his level had increased greatly and the arena was empty and they could go and test their strength. Shen Qian told him that his younger brother was very determined, but he was afraid that his level would not even interest such a master. Shen Qian immediately called Zhang Chaoyu and thought that this Zhang Jiatian was practicing for the first time and he did not believe that he was strong in techniques. Zhang Chaoyu looked at Shen Qian and asked his brother how he could help him and said that he was now available to his brother's services. Shen told Zhang Chaoyu that disciple Zhu said that he had some questions about his technique and wanted to ask him for advice. Zhang Chaoyu told Shen Qian that if he didn't understand something, he could always ask him for help because they should always help. Shen Qian left Zhu Jiatian in front of disciple Zhang Chaoyu and disappeared somewhere and he realized that this asshole left him and ran away. Shen Qian thought that as long as he was studying in this school, Zhu Jiatian would take advantage of moments to create problems. Shen Qian immediately realized that he would need to take a vacation for these days to gain strength and pass that same monthly exam. Shen Qian went into the teacher's room and the teacher was surprised and asked Shen Qian why he wanted to take a leave and for how many days to go. Shen Qian started coughing and told the teacher that he was very ill and needed to rest for about 2 days and sleep at home. The teacher told Shen Qian that he saw that he was serious about his studies and his ideas were very good, and he noticed Shen's changes. The teacher told Shen Qian that he would give him a vacation, but he should do even more work and not be surprised at the end of the year grade. Shen Qian thought and wondered if Wuzhen had done all his homework without mistakes and surprised his teacher with such work. After that, Shen Qian returned home and thought that Haotian was clearly planning something, but he didn't know what exactly yet, but he would soon find out. Shen Qian noticed that Wuzhen had fallen asleep on the table in his house because she did all his homework every day without stopping. Shen Qian looked at Wuzhen and wondered if she was still sleeping and thought that she had worked so many days that she was very tired from it. Shen Qian thought that Wuzhen should be grateful that she has such a caring boss, otherwise he would have woken her up to make tea. After that, night came and Wuzhen was sleeping, but she began to hear some sounds outside the house, and it was the familiar voice of brother Shen Qian. From these sounds, Wu Jin began to wake up and wondered if she had fallen asleep right at the table while doing her homework, and it looked like she was very tired during the day. Wuzhen wondered if brother Shen Qian had already returned home, but she was wondering where he was because she hadn't seen him at home. Wuzhen went outside and saw Shen Qian and wondered if he was training at such a late hour and why was he awake instead. Wuzhen noticed the book lying on the ground and wondered if Shen Qian was practicing the bloody hawk strike technique according to this instruction. Wuzhen looked at how Shen Qian was training and thought why his movements looked very strange, as if he was not a fighter at all. Shen Qian realized that something was wrong and his movements were different from that thief and wondered if the difference between them was really that great. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that his movements were terrible and he turned around and asked her if she had really woken up and what she told him now. Wuzhen told brother Shen Qian that she just said it without thinking and didn't want to laugh at him and asked him not to be angry. Shen Qian asked Wuzhen who told her that he was angry and asked her to tell him why his movements were terrible and clumsy. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that it just seemed to her that this technique was not foldable enough and she only assumed this version. Wuzhen asked Shen Qian to raise his elbows 3 centimeters higher and lower his knees 2 centimeters lower because it was more convenient. Wu Jin said that now he was doing everything correctly and asked him to stand and not move and he should be comfortable now. Shen Qian strained with all his might for this technique and asked Wuzhen if this was still not the case because he was already at his limit. Shen Qian said that he was at the limit and could not stand it, but Wuzhen asked him not to give up and hold out a little more time. After that, Wuzhen went to bed and thought that now brother Shen had learned how to train properly, and later morning came. Wuzhen went outside and saw that Shen was still training there non-stop and she didn't believe it and told her brother that it was already morning. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that she did not expect him to be so diligent and she had to help him not only with his tasks. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that she also helped with training, and then Shen threw a wad of money at her and she stopped complaining to him. Shen Qian told Wuzhen that this was her salary and asked if she still didn't have the strength to help him or if something had already changed for her. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that it was not like that at all and the fact that she helped him last night no longer mattered. Shen realized that it seems that Wuzhen has a special talent and can at first glance identify mistakes in the movements of other practitioners. Shen Qian thought that if his movements were not harmonious, then one could see mistakes from Wuzhen's facial expression and her eyes. Shen thought that other people couldn't even see their own mistakes and Wuzhen gave him tips and told him comfortable poses. Shen felt sorry that Wuzhen could watch all the fighters, but her body itself is far from balanced and this is a waste of her talent. A week later, the system informed the master that the bloody hawk strike technique was a fusion of 2 levels and the first one was opened. Shen Qian was pleased that he had finally reached the first level of this technique because he had trained a lot for this moment. The bloody hawk strike technique was better than hand-to-hand combat and had 2 stages that had to be practiced to unlock. Shen Qian thought that he would finally be able to complete the purification of internal qi because, unlike this technique, his technique was pitiful. By calculating the strength of martial arts consisting of 2 types, Shen will be able to complete the body conditioning 3 times and reach the 3rd level. The main prerequisite for the transition to the brain state was the achievement of the 9th level and the master would immediately begin to comprehend it. Development required a lot of money and time, and a person who has little of this will not be able to achieve anything, and this also applied to fighting practice. The number of possibilities for hardening the body is limited, so many masters prefer to comprehend a new state upon reaching. Very few geniuses with resources and talent continued to remain at a low level, but there was one exception in history. The strongest practitioner in history was level 15 and his strength began to suppress his life and he eventually died from the pressure. But Sun Qian thought that he was not like that and as long as he had a lot of advice, he could train as much as he wanted. However, Sun Qian understood that it was impossible to get everything at once and his money was now not enough even for maximum hand-to-hand combat. Bloody Hawk Strike should be better even at level 1 and it needs to be leveled up to medium first and test the power. And then Sun Qian asked the system to increase his Bloody Hawk Strike level to medium level and he immediately felt the energy. Sun Qian realized that the effect of the blood purification pill was so obvious that he did not feel exhausted at all, which was great. Sun Qian thought that apparently the average level was not enough to waste the entire effect of the pill and he decided to increase the level even more. Sun Qian asked the system to continue contributing funds to upgrade his technique to an advanced level so that he could become stronger. Sun Qian realized that the effect of the pill had ended and he felt a little tired and it was not able to cover his energy consumption. Sun Qian realized that it seems that such a pill is capable of organizing full impact only when moving from beginner to advanced. Sun thought that if he wants to become stronger, in addition to money, he will also need stronger pills to replenish his energy. And then Wu Jin ran up to him and asked him to go and eat because she cooked him noodles and added a few fried eggs for strength. Sun Qian told Wuzhen that he would come now and asked him to cut onions for him and thought that the next step was to pass the monthly exam. Yanbei Middle School has a rule that requires a monthly exam to be conducted in every class without exception. The essence of this exam is simple and it is a regular battle in the arena and at the beginning each student receives a rating card and takes away the loser's points. Therefore, students with low ratings deliberately chose stronger opponents with high ratings to take this away from them. And so the main rating was formed and after each exam the students took first, second and other places based on its results. The director said that Zhang Chaoyu and Liang Ming are absent from the exam today, so the rating of all participants will increase by 2 more. The student thought and said that now it turned out that Zhu Jiatian was in first place since Zhang Chaoyu was no longer participating there. Zhu Jiatian said that he originally planned to fight Zhang to gain combat experience and he was sorry that he was not there today. Zhu Jiatian thought that all the students were a bunch of scum still without strength and asking someone to help them with their development. The principal told Sun Qian that since he had just entered this class, according to the school rules, his rating would be the lowest for now. The director told Sun Qian that he hoped that he would try not to be like before and Sun did not understand why it was so unfair. Sun Qian was in 4th place and he asked the director not to worry and said that he would definitely try his best today. The disciples said who Sun Qian bribed this time and he is lying saying that he will try his best today and so on. The student told his friends that he should remind everyone not to accept money from him today and to keep everything fair. The student said that you should not underestimate Sun Qian because he knows that he defeated Gaobua and 2 others a few days ago and he is cool. 15 minutes later the exam began and the first winner was Wu Dailu, but he was surprised because his rating did not change afterwards. Zhu Jiatian asked everyone why no one challenged him and they should try to take his first place while Zhang Chaoyu is away. The student said that it was good that Zhang Chaoyu was in first place because he fought honestly and could stop in time. But Zhu Jiatian was not capable of this, and in any case, the best 3 will be able to receive an award and it is better to be 3rd than 1st. At this time, Zhu Jiatian began to go up to the exam arena and wait until some brave student was afraid to challenge. Zhu Jiatian told all the students that he didn't want to offend anyone, but all the people standing outside the arena were just trash and they were weak. But suddenly Sun Qian said that these are not bad words, but if someone did not see their opponent in the ring, then he himself is more trash than everyone else. The disciples looked at this and did not understand, was Sun Qian now with the 40th rank challenging Zhu Jiatian for first place. The students wondered if Sun Qian had gone crazy because this Zhu Jiatian had a perfect level of martial arts and was strong. The students were wondering how Sun Qian was going to fight Zhu Jiatian with only average experience in these martial arts. Zhu Jiatian looked straight at Sun Qian and said that he already thought that he ran away from there with his tail between his legs like a real coward. The teacher said that the battle had begun and Sun Qian told Zhu Jiatian that today let them find out who the real martial artist is. The fighters quickly ran towards each other and prepared to strike first and have a great chance of winning the enemy. Shen Qian jumped high and wanted to use the technique and told his opponent that now he would see a real mountain-crushing blow. Zhu Jiatian put his hand in front of him and told Shen Qian that it was too slow and he would not be able to hit the school champion. Shen Qian only smiled back at him, and he was confident in his abilities and was not at all afraid of his opponent and was ready for all his attacks. Zhu Jiatian swung and wanted to hit Shen Qian, but suddenly he couldn't do it and wondered where Shen could have disappeared from the ring. And then Zhu Jiatian heard some sounds behind him and realized that his enemy had somehow ended up behind him, and quickly, Shen Qian swung and struck Zhu Jiatian from his back with a bloody hawk strike technique, and the opponent immediately felt hellish pain. The teacher was surprised and said that the winner of this battle was Shen Qian and his rank was raised from 40th place to 1st place. Zhu Jiatian could not believe how this could happen because Shen Qian had never practiced hand-to-hand combat before and was weak. Shen Qian took Zhu Jiatian's ranking card and he dropped to last place and said that if he hesitates, he will lose. The disciples could not believe that Shen Qian defeated Zhu Jiatian with one blow, and it seems that it was a bloody hawk strike technique. The disciples did not think that Shen Qian had mastered other techniques, and it seemed that only Zhang Chaoyu with his skill and experience in combat could defeat him. The disciples thought that this was strange because Shen Qian had not even reached the first level of tempering yet and was already practicing 2 techniques. And then a friend approached the student and said that it looked like Shen Qian had taken 1st place in their class and was now the strongest fighter. The student could not believe these words of his friend and asked him to wait and asked how this could happen because he was new to the class. And then the teacher announced that the winner in the battle was Wei Pan, and the rank of this student was promoted to 1st because he defeated Shen Qian. Shen Qian sat in the ring and said that it was incredible and he was so scared and there was no way he could defeat such a strong fighter. The students froze in surprise and wondered if student Wei Pan had the lowest level before Shen Qian came to their class. The student said that Wei Pan recently barely managed to reach only the entry level, and how could he defeat such a fighter Shen? The student was angry and told Wei Pan that he would not accept this and was challenging him because he should never have taken 1st place. And after a couple of minutes, the teacher said that the fight was over and the winner was student Li Luwu and his rank was promoted to 1st in the school. Wei Pan at that time sat and sobbed in the ring and said that he was giving up and asked Li Luwu not to hit him in the face anymore and to finish this fight. And a second later, Shen Qian appeared behind Li Luwu and asked the student if they could talk or rather dance in this ring. Li Luwu immediately turned around and told Shen Qian that he didn't want this and was giving up and said that this card was his again and he didn't mind at all. Shen Qian smiled and realized that it was good and he was in 1st place again and he liked being the winner in school fights. Shen Qian approached Wei Pan and said that as for the two of them, he thought that he was not even a rival to such a strong fighter like him. Wei Pan couldn't believe his ears because such a strong master like Shen Qian told him that he was stronger than him and he was very happy. Shen Qian gave 1st place to Wei Pan and he said that this feeling of 1st place was unforgettable and he could not convey his joy. Shen Qian thought that his principle was that his client is his god and his joy is his motivation, but it has its price. Disciple Li Luwu said that Shen Qian was a creature and he and Wei Pan did not even fight, and how was this even possible there? The disciples said that Shen Qian and Wei Pan simply exchanged their cards and called Shen a shameless person and a deceiver. The teacher announced that the winner of the battle was Zhu Jiatian and his rank was raised, and he looked and saw that he was in 30th place. Zhu Jiatian thought that he could not defeat Shen but was forced to fight with others and he had to be in the top 3 for that reward. Zhu Jiatian thought that he was so angry that he had to let off steam on these weaklings and challenged everyone. Zhu Jiatian asked the students not to blame him and to be honest, with these forces like theirs, he would rather go home and not disgrace himself. The disciples said that Zhu Jiatian could not defeat Shen Qian and because of this he used them to let off steam and his anger towards them. The students said that Zhu Jiatian was too arrogant if he wanted to fight against the 20s in the ranking, and this infuriated them. And at that moment, Shen Qian approached the students and asked if they would like to use his service to increase their rank and wonder. The teacher announced that the winner was Zhu Jiatian and his rank had already been raised to 10th place and he rose with each fight. Zhu Jiatian thought it was time to challenge for 3rd place and the teacher said that Lu Yang was now 11th in the ranking. And then Shen Qian approached Zhu Jiatian and lightly grabbed him by the shoulder and asked the student if they could fight in the ring again now. But the teacher said that Zhu Jiatian was calling the student Wei Pan, and in the end, after a couple of minutes, the winner of this fight was Jiatian. Wei Pan lay defeated and Shen Qian approached Zhu Jiatian again and asked if they could fight, but he was simply silent until the end. But the teacher announced that Zhu Jiatian was calling the fighter Zhang Yebao and he expectedly won this fight but still avoided the school champion. After each labor victory of Zhu Jiatian, the champion Shen Qian approached him from behind and offered to fight, but was refused. Zhu Jiatian challenged the last opponent Sifei Ji and won it, and the teacher also got tired of saying the name of Zhu Jiatian's student. And immediately after the victory, Shen Qian approached the fighter Zhu Jiatian and asked if he had changed his mind about fighting him after this long time of fighting. And so every time Zhu Jiatian challenged someone and immediately defeated them, he approached them and offered interesting help. Shen Qian offered his help to the losing fighters in regaining their rank, and it was brilliant, and he asked to come again. And an hour after that, the exam ended and the students reported that the rating was posted on the board and they could see their place. The students looked at this ranking and saw that the first place was taken by Shen Qian and the student Zhu Jiatian was in last place. Zhu Jiatian was shocked by this ranking and told Shen Qian not to come near him, and he did not want to interact with anyone else at school. The students said that it was a pity, and Zhu Jiatian was now in last place in the class because he had recently been the class champion. Shen Qian asked Zhu Jiatian if he had withdrawn into himself and said that he was not a devil and next time he would not play like that. But Shen Qian was very happy because this time he received a lot of money and could now spend it on his development of martial arts. After that, in the arena of Yanbei High School, Teacher Lin and other students of the school stood and he asked them various questions about the exam. Teacher Lin asked the students what happened to the results of this monthly exam while another good teacher was replacing him. Wei Pan thanked Teacher Lin for the praise and said that they will continue to try to develop and become strong fighters. But Teacher Lin was not at all happy about this and clenched his fists and realized that behind this whole mess could be one student in this school. Teacher Lin got angry and called Shen Qian and wanted to hear from him detailed information about how it turned out in the exam. Shen Qian turned around and asked Teacher Lin what happened because this time he didn't bribe anyone like before and everything was fine there. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that he forbade him to give bribes, but he decided not to give them, but rather to take bribes from students himself. Shen Qian told Teacher Ling that he got along with the students and they all communicated amicably, and he simply strengthened his weak spirit with this. Teacher Lin thought that after all this student was impudent and how he always managed to find some way for his benefit everywhere. Teacher Lin told Shen Qian that this time he would forget about this incident, but next time the results would not be accepted by their school. 2 days later, Shen realized that he had earned more than 300,000 yuan from this exam, and this covered the cost of improving the hawk. Wei Pan approached Shen and thanked him for allowing him to take first place, and now the girls were delighted with him. Wei Pan told Shen Qian that he did not need a reward for first place and therefore asked him to take such a prize as a recovery pill. Shen congratulated Wei Pan and thought that he had read everything and mastered a new technique at no cost and also received a reward for first place. Shen Qian sat in class and thought that now he has 700,000 yuan in his account and needs another 300,000 for leveling up and how to find them. But at that very second, someone entered the class and called Shen with a shout, and he turned around and thought who it was who was shouting at him so brazenly in their class. It was Zhang Chaoyu, and he heard from the students what happened during the exams and he didn't like the chaos that he created there. Zhang Chaoyu told Shen that the class ranking was determined by the school rules and this was a fair competition and why he broke the rules. And Shen Qian thought why this disciple looked like a sage like Taxen who said that practitioners should not pursue fame. Shen Qian stood up and told Zhang Chaoyu that he should stop shouting there and said that what he was doing there should not concern him. Zhang Chaoyu told Shen Qian that if he doesn't want to improve, then he will have to beat him with all his might to make him understand this. Shen Qian wondered if Zhang Chaoyu was really that angry, and he had seen before that his strength was far superior to Zhu Jiatian. Shen Qian asked Zhang Chaoyu to wait and thought that he just needed to admit his mistake so as not to engage in battle with such a master. But Zhang Chaoyu said that even if he beats him, he still won't admit the mistake, and that's why he bets the money he took. Zhang Chaoyu said that if he wins, Shen will return all the money to the students, and if he loses, he will pay him exactly the same amount of money. Shen Qian was shocked because he remembered that it was the amount of 300,000 yuan and he just didn't have enough money for development. Zhang Chaoyu slapped his chest and said that a man will always keep his word and he will never deceive his opponent in battle. The students shook hands and Shen Qian said that this was a deal and he also understood what a promise to a fighter was. The students walked around the schoolyard and asked each other if he had heard that today the arena was occupied by a student from the elite class. Liang Ming heard that it was Zhang Chaoyu who returned and was unhappy that Shen Qian broke the rules and challenged him. After that, all the students gathered in the arena and shouted at Zhang Chaoyu to finish off Shen Qian for brazenly breaking the rules. Zhang Chaoyu stood in the ring with Shen Qian and asked him to teach him something new and was very interested in learning about the techniques. Shen Qian told Zhang Chaoyu that he was first in class and immediately asked him if he could be the first to land 3 blows on a fighter. Shen thought that although his principle is not to get involved in dubious competitions, if he wins, he can improve his level. Zhang Chaoyu hid his hands behind his back and told Shen Qian that she could safely attack him and he was not at all against it. The disciples were furious that Shen Qian took advantage of the opportunity while Zhang Chaoyu was talking to him and he was a scoundrel and they didn't like him. The students said that it was very unconscionable and Shen Qian did not respect brother Zhang Chaoyu and wanted him to lose this fight. Zhang Chaoyu told Shen Qian that his bloody hawk strike technique was extremely powerful and he had difficulty blocking his attack. Shen Qian was surprised and as he thought, Zhang Chaoyu was very strong and he had experience from real battles and fought him honestly. Shen Qian realized that Zhang Chaoyu was practicing the art of Qigong and with his current strength, there was no way he could break his body and his spirit. Zhang Chaoyu used the golden reflection barrier technique and told Shen Qian to continue because he still had 2 hits left. Shen Qian realized that it was a headache and the Qigong barrier he was using would be difficult to deal with and needed to be dispelled. But then Liang Ming entered the arena and asked Shen Qian and Zhang Chaoyu why they were fighting each other and why it was necessary at all. Zhang Chaoyu became nervous and told Liang Ming that this happened very accidentally and he was not mocking Shen Qian and they were just playing. Zhang Chaoyu told Liang Ming that it was all because of that exam and he thought that he should get justice for this liar. Shen Qian looked at Zhang Chaoyu's behavior and excuses and realized that he seemed to like Liang Ming and was very nervous in front of her. Shen Qian told Zhang Chaoyu that he was going to hit him and he immediately turned around and asked what he would do now and why he would hit him. Shen Qian began to use the bloody hawk strike technique and quickly approached his opponent and Zhang Chaoyu froze in place. Shen Qian took advantage of the fact that Zhang Chaoyu was distracted from their fight and struck him with a strong blow right in the face and stuck him in the ground. All the students froze in surprise and were in shock because they never expected that Shen Qian would be able to defeat such an experienced master. Shen Qian told everyone that he had won and the fight was over because he was able to hit Zhang Chaoyu and took him by surprise with his technique. All the students shouted at Shen Qian and said that it was very mean because brother Zhang Chaoyu was not prepared for his dangerous blow. Shen Qian told the disciples that they warned Zhang Chaoyu that he was going to hit him, but he did not block the blow. The students said that they did not care about such formalities and he was still a vile person and they never worried about him. Liang Ming looked at the loser Zhang Chaoyu and thought maybe she shouldn't have come to watch this fight and distract the fighter. At this time, the same people who were chasing Wu Jin were standing in an abandoned building and the man told the boss that he had news. The man told the boss that that fool Wu Jin was definitely hiding in that person's house and they also found out information about that person. The man said that Shen Qian used to be the heir of the Shen company, but due to his lack of talent in fighting, he was expelled from the family. And now it became clear to them why Shen lived in a mansion at such an early age. Even though he was expelled, he was still a member of the family. The man asked the boss if they would have any problems and the boss asked him not to worry and said that they would contact Brotherly for this. The boss said that Brotherly himself would give them instructions and his man told the boss that as he expected, he was always right and thought about the actions. In the evening, Brotherly was sitting in a street cafe and eating shrimp, and then his people began to approach him to provide some information. A man from Li's gang sat down with the boss and he was surprised and asked him why he came to him at such a late time and what he wanted to say. The man told Brother Li that what they told him turned out to be true and had no right to hide it from their boss Li. Li finished his dinner and told his people that he should contact Usain and they should wait for him there and not go anywhere. Previously, chaos reigned in the Yanbei underground market and all the people on the street did what they wanted without fear and no one could stop them from doing this. And there was no need to talk about violent methods of debt collection because people didn't care and they could steal the debtors' children. At that time, chaos reigned in the Yenbei market and all the gangs did what they wanted and threatened all the people and were not afraid of the laws of the city. No one knew where this man named Usain came from, who with his terrible methods stood at the head of all these gangs in the city. Since then, the credit system has been streamlined and wild dogs have been given collars and began to obey the orders of their master. The wild dogs have now turned into hunting dogs and Usain took the phone and asked Lee if he was telling him the truth and not lying. Lee told Yi that he told him the truth and there is not a drop of lie in his words and Yi told him about his multi-million-dollar order. Yi asked Lee why he called him and Lee said that he had news for Yi and he thought that it would be of great interest to him. Yi told Lee that he should not worry about the Shen family and do what he sees fit and gave him the go-ahead for this task. Lee said thank you to Yi and asked him not to worry and said that everything would be under control and he himself would be responsible for this task. The gang man asked Lee who Yi was and could he mess with the Shen family and was he really such an influential person? Lee told his man that he could keep guessing but with his mind it didn't make any sense even if he broke his head. Yi hung up the phone and thought that it seems that having such a smart person under his command is not so bad and he thought about Shen Chang. Yi thought that it would be nice if Shen Qian remained trash like before and maybe he also had a system. The next morning, Zhang Chaoyu was at the bank and told Shen Qian that he had finished and soon 300,000 would be transferred to his account. Shen Qian smiled and told Zhang Chaoyu that he was a rich man and why couldn't he give 300,000 in cash. Zhang Chaoyu told Shen Qian that his father taught him that money is hard to come by and should not be spent on just anything. But Shen Qian asked Zhang Chaoyu to stop saying such things and he realized that he had a strong limit on spending his money. Zhang Chaoyu nodded his head and agreed with Shen Qian and said that he was completely right and he agreed with everything he said. Shen Qian thought that if it weren't for 300,000 yuan, he wouldn't have missed class to talk to this sage about all sorts of things. And then Zhang Chaoyu thought about it and asked Shen Qian how they would go to school because he asked for half a day off and was allowed to do it. Shen Qian told Zhang Chaoyu that he didn't have to worry because he had asked to take the whole day off and would not go back to school with him. Shen Qian realized that he had missed classes immediately after the exam and was wondering what Teacher Lin would think about his absence. Teacher Lin at that time stood in the classroom near the blackboard and explained to all the students about the source of strength and how absolute strength can be achieved. Teacher Lin thought that Shen was a bastard and created so many problems on the day of the exam and also dared not to show up for his class today. Liang Ming thought that she would need to remind Shen Qian that if he continues to skip classes, he will be among the laggards. After finishing all the classes, Liang Ming rode her bike to Shen Qian's house to tell him that he shouldn't miss classes. Liang Ming rang his doorbell and thought that she had not been there for a long time and a voice inside said that she could now enter this house. And then Wuzhen opened the door and she thought that it was brother Shen Qian who had come and said that he came very early today and she was glad. And at that same second, Wuzhen and Liang Ming noticed each other and froze in surprise and were shocked because they both did not expect to see them themselves. Wuzhen wondered if it was Shen Qian's brother's girlfriend and why didn't he tell her about her and she felt very uncomfortable. Liang Ming's mood immediately dropped and she wondered if Shen Qian was living with another girl and she clearly didn't expect this from him. Wuzhen wanted to talk to Liang Ming and explain to her that this is not what she thought, but suddenly someone ordered Shen Qian to come out. Liang Ming was surprised and turned around to see some men standing in front of her and she thought what they needed from Shen Qian. The man from the gang told Wu Jin that he didn't think that she would give herself away in such a stupid way and that she had been living in this house all this time. The man from the gang asked his brother to see that there was another girl there and it looks like they were very lucky and they have now hit the jackpot. They informed Brother Li that Shen Qian was not there but besides Wuzhen there was another girl there and he ordered them to quickly detain them. The man from the gang began to warm up and told the girls to be obedient and then they would do everything quickly and not get hurt. But when the gang man didn't expect this, Liang Ming ran up to him and kicked him in the face as hard as she could and knocked him out. The boss of these people froze in surprise and couldn't understand if this girl had just knocked out his experienced fighter with one blow. Another man from the gang told Liang Ming that she had harmed her brother and they would not let her go now and wanted to attack her and take revenge for everything. But Liang Ming was not at all afraid of him and immediately quickly struck the second man right in his face and he fell to the ground unconscious. After such a jump, Liang Ming landed softly on the ground and she said that in the Liang family there is a rule to always act first. Liang Ming said that this was how they kept others under control and they did it first and then spoke after fixing the problem. The boss said that he didn't expect that Liang Ming knew martial arts and judging by her posture, she used the desert earth support technique. Liang Ming looked at this man and realized that he had a very intimidating aura and he did not look like an ordinary bandit or thief. The gang boss smiled and told Liang Ming that he was very impressed with her skills and technique but now he wanted to tell her one important thing. The gang boss told Liang Ming that since she was also a practitioner, he would not hold back and would attack the practitioner with all his might. At this time, Shen Qian was sitting in the arcade playing games and he saw Zhang Qiaoyu there and asked what he forgot there and what he needed. Zhang Qiaoyu told Shen Qian that it is the student's duty to study even during holidays and not waste time on any games. Shen Qian thought that he left the recovery pill at home while he was waiting for 300,000 and as soon as he was at home he would raise the level. Zhang Qiaoyu was smart and told Shen Qian that he was so young and was already wasting time on games, but he didn't want to listen to the sage at all. And at that moment someone called Shen Qian and he looked at his phone and realized that for some reason they called him and his home number. Shen Qian asked Zhang Qiaoyu to be quiet and asked Wuzhen why she called him and maybe he needs to buy something for home. But the man on the phone told Shen Qian that his girlfriends were with them and he was in shock and could not believe his ears at this news. At this time, in the hallway of Shen's mansion, Wuzhen and Liang Ming were sitting tied up and people from the gang were watching them so that they would not escape. The man from the gang took out a knife and said that this girl beat him and his brother to such a state and still dares to sit and be stubborn. And at that moment the man from the gang told the girls that they might not believe him, but now he could kill them with just one movement of his hand. A man from a gang wanted to stab the girls because they beat them and he wanted to take revenge on them for this act and swung his knife. But another man grabbed his friend's hand and called him a fool and said that his brother told them not to harm the girls and had he forgotten? The boss at that time called Shen Qian and said that his girlfriends were with them and she owed his boss 3 million yuan and he would find them. Boss Li told his man that it was great and it was good that he used the hostages so that he would come there to save his girlfriends. Li said that they would arrange everything as if the creditor attacked her for non-payment of debt, but Shen said that he was mistaken and he has no girlfriends. Shen Qian said that that girl is his maid and she owes him money and her affairs do not concern him and he did not show signs of panic. Shen Qian asked what kind of bandits are they who cannot kidnap a person and asked if they know who he is and who he can call. The bandit asked Shen Qian if he was afraid of what would happen to the ladies, but he said that he was taking a break from the game and he could dial via video call. Shen Qian told the bandit that he should return to the game and said that he was not interested in the condition of these ladies and immediately ended the conversation. Shen Qian thought that he should turn this summoned into a hostage and began to think how he could help his friends now. The bandit said that it seemed like Shen Qian didn't care and Li said that it seems they underestimated him but got more with the call. Shen Qian quickly jumped out of the arcade hall and Zhang Qiaoyu was surprised and asked Shen where he was in such a hurry after this call. Shen Qian asked Zhang Qiaoyu to wait and said that he was thinking right now and he needed a minute of silence so that he could come up with a plan. But at that very second those same bandits started calling Shen Qian on his phone again and they called him back very quickly after answering. Shen Qian thought that they quickly called him back and didn't even let him come up with a plan to save his girlfriends from the bandits. Shen Qian answered the bandits and asked if they had changed their minds and they told Shen not to rush because there was another person in captivity. The bandit told Shen Qian that it was a girl and she was also in his house now and Shen was surprised what kind of girl could come there. Zhang Qiaoyu was also very worried and stood next to Shen Qian and asked the English what was the matter and wanted to get any information. Shen Qian closed Zhang's mouth and asked the bandits if they were taking him for a fool and how could he have so many girls. The bandit told Shen Qian to stop pretending to be a fool and they had 2 hostages and Shen asked what he wanted from him then. The bandit said that everything was very simple and he shouldn't tell anyone about it and just bring a ransom of 3 million yuan and that's it. The bandit promised that then they would immediately release both girls and immediately hung up and Shen Qian wondered if he had disconnected. Zhang Qiaoyu started shouting at Shen Qian and asked what was going on and why he covered his mouth and who he was talking to all this time. Shen Qian told Zhang Chaoyu that his friends were kidnapped and now they are demanding ransom money from him, otherwise they will kill them and that's all. Zhang Chaoyu was shocked and said that this is terrible and do these people even know about the laws and they need to immediately report to the police. Shen Qian said that reporting to the police would be the very last option and when they are killed then they can report. Shen Qian asked Zhang Chaoyu if he could help him deal with these bandits now because he alone could not cope with them. Zhang Chaoyu hit himself on the chest and told Shen Qian that he doesn't have to worry and he won't leave it so easily and they will soon get. And an hour later, on the outskirts of the main entrance to the mansion, one man in a cap appeared and the bandits realized that it must be Shen Qian. The bandits told Shen Qian that he was finally there, but a couple of days ago he was stubborn and today they will teach him to be polite. The bandit's friend said that Shen Qian is just trash with no knowledge of fighting and he doesn't even need to interfere and he himself will quickly finish him off. The bandit wanted to attack Shen Qian and said that now he would try his royal fist and he hoped that he would really like it. But suddenly Shen Qian put up a barrier in front of him and the bandit couldn't hit him with his hand and was surprised at what Shen Qian had just done. And at that same second, the bandit flew a couple of meters away from Shen Qian and could not do anything with his powerful defense against all enemy attacks. The bandit flew back to his friend and asked if it was a golden barrier and told this man that he was not that Shen Qian. It was Zhang Chaoyu here. He called them scum and said that they would accept punishment for using martial arts in the name of evil. Inside the mansion they heard that there was a fight going on outside and one of them invited the rest of their friends to go there and see what was there. The bandit told his friend that he should not worry and brotherly said that they should guard the hostages and not go anywhere. And then Shen Qian appeared behind them and said that in this case he would reward them for carrying out the order and show them a master class. Shen Qian quickly dealt with these bandits and said that he had already defeated these bandits and all he had to do was save the girls and escape. Shen Qian untied them and said that he was wondering who the second lady was and didn't expect that it was Liang Ming and it looked like the bandits didn't even recognize her. Wuzhen grabbed Shen Qian's hand and said that they should quickly get out of there because these bandits were very dangerous and evil. Liang Ming said that these people are not ordinary bandits, and among them there is a martial artist with a high level and he is very dangerous. But then a bandit appeared in front of them and asked Liang Ming why she told Shen Qian about this and it's not better to show it in practice. The bandit called Shen Qian a boy and said that he could not surprise him with his actions at all and he simply hid inside the house. The bandit told Shen Qian that brotherly said that he could use all his strength against him and even finish him off in danger. The bandit told Shen Qian that he could say the last words before going to the next world and Shen thought about the answer to the thief. Shen Qian showed the bandit his middle finger and said that he could have gone to hell and these were his last words, just as he wanted. The bandit told Shen Qian that now he simply wasted these last words and now he will go to the other world very quickly. The bandit wanted to attack Shen Qian but when he did not expect this, he heard the door open behind him and someone entered the mansion. And then Zhang Chaoyu ran to the bandit very quickly and began to use the Steel Mountain technique and hit him with all his might. Shen Qian was also not at a loss and helped his friend and ran to the bandit and struck him in the stomach with the Bloody Hawk lunge technique. The bandit was in pain and Shen Qian asked him if he was naive and thought that he would come there alone because he also has friends. Zhang Chaoyu told the bandit that his accomplices were weaklings and how could they even stop the student Zhang Chaoyu himself. Zhang Chaoyu told the bandit that he was too strong for him in a one-on-one fight and so they decided to attack him together with Shen Qian. Shen Qian told Zhang Chaoyu that he did a good job and he didn't expect them to work together and it was a good fighting experience. Zhang Chaoyu told Shen Qian that they were lucky and good that he was there too and how dare those scoundrels kidnap sweet Miss Liang Ming. The bandit was lying on the floor unconscious after receiving a heavy attack, and Shen Qian and his friend went to find out how the lovely ladies were doing. Shen Qian told Liang Ming that he saved her for a reason and asked if she could tell her father and he gave him a recovery pill. Zhang Chaoyu realized that although Shen Qian said that he saved them for the sake of the reward, but in fact he was very worried about his girlfriends. And then suddenly Zhang Chaoyu saw something strange and realized that it was danger and the bandit woke up ahead of time after being knocked out. Zhang Chaoyu noticed that Shen Qian was in danger and quickly ran towards him and asked him to be careful and move away. Zhang Chaoyu managed to push Shen Qian and a strong large object was thrown at him by the same bandit. Shen Qian turned around and thought how is this even possible, because they completely knocked out this bandit and saw him lying on the floor. Shen Qian could not understand how this bandit could get up after such a dull knockout and throw such a large object in their direction. The bandit said that if it weren't for the talisman of protection that Brotherly gave him, which absorbs half the damage, he would have been dead long ago. Liang Ming thought that there was something wrong there, because this bandit only practiced the technique of the strength of a furious beast, but he should not be alive. Wu Jin said that the furious beast technique was a very aggressive technique, and the heavier the attacks he received, the greater his potential. Shen Qian said that it wasn't a video game, and why did he get stronger when he got hit, like in berserk mode in a video game? Shen Qian realized that when his condition was normal, they should have combined their forces and launched a sneak attack on this fighter. But Shen Qian thought that now that the bandit was back on his feet, he would not defeat him alone because he was much weaker than him. Shen realized that now the best option is to escape, but this requires a person as bait and then the rest will escape from there. But the problem was that Shen Qian had to decide which of them would be the bait, and it was a very difficult choice and his head hurt. But immediately Zhang Chaoyu stood up and asked Shen Qian and the others to leave there, and he swore as a practitioner that the bandit would remain there. Shen Qian asked Zhang Chaoyu to just detain the bandit and not risk his life, and said that he would quickly bring help there. The bandit said that it was funny and that Zhang Chaoyu was just an ordinary high school student and called himself a martial arts practitioner. Zhang Chaoyu got angry and said that he would never lose to this freak who dares to take defenseless girls hostage. The bandit told Zhang Chaoyu that he seemed to be very brave and was not afraid of him, and immediately ran towards him and said that he would die. The bandit quickly ran up to disciple Zhang Chaoyu and hit him with all his strength in the stomach with his technique, and now he was in great pain. Zhang Chaoyu immediately fell to the ground, and the bandit said that if he had not been so exhausted, he would have withstood this blow and they could fight. But the bandit told Zhang Chaoyu that he was now seriously injured, but he still wanted to stop such a senior martial artist. The bandit wanted to leave there to catch Shen Qian and the others, but he stopped and asked the middle school student what he was doing. Zhang Chaoyu grabbed the bandit's leg tightly and said that he had given his friends his word that he would not let him pursue them and would not let him go. The bandit got angry and told Zhang Chaoyu that he could get away from him, and immediately kicked him in the face with all his might and thought that he would let him go. The bandit continued to inflict heavy kicks on the student and ordered him to let him go immediately because he was already completely tired of this. Zhang Chaoyu continued to hold the bandit by the leg and did not let go, but received many blows from him that were heard throughout the house. The bandit told the scoundrel Zhang Chaoyu that he could now just lie there obediently and no longer waste his time on his ridiculous exploits. But the Yanbei middle school student did not want to stop and began to crawl towards the bandit's foot to prevent him from leaving this mansion. The bandit looked at the student and wondered how he could move after receiving so many blows, and was he still not giving up? The bandit raised his leg high and told Zhang Chaoyu that then he would die right there, and now no one could help or save him. The bandit wanted to deliver the final blow to the student, but at that very second someone told him not to do this, and the bandit stopped and looked back. A familiar person returned home, and Zhang Chaoyu was very happy to see him again and asked Shen Qian if he had really returned home. Shen Qian told Zhang Chaoyu that Liang Ming and the others had already left this place and he had already called for help and his friend could now rest. Zhang Chaoyu calmed down and closed his eyes and told Shen Qian that he was so glad to see him again and now he could take a breath. Shen Qian wondered if this stubborn disciple didn't understand that he asked to detain the fighter and he risked his life and almost died. The bandit told Shen Qian that he did not expect him to return and thought that he would leave his friend there to die and not help him in trouble. The bandit asked Shen Qian where his reinforcements were, and he hit his heart and said that they were there and were rushing to help. The bandit laughed and asked if he really thought he could defeat him, and even Zhang Chaoyu was stronger than him and he was just ordinary trash. Shen Qian took a fighting stance and told the bandit that if he wanted to look at the worthless jester, he would no longer hold back. The bandit asked Shen Qian what he meant by these words, and he wanted to know if he was hiding his real powers from him. Shen Qian told the bandit that he beat his best friend and it would not be difficult for him to injure him so that his mother would not recognize him later. Shen Qian remembered that since he began to study the world, they began to prepare him for his legacy in the Shen Corporation from childhood. They didn't see their father that often, but at every meeting he said that as an heir he must learn to calculate everything first. And then Shen Qian was young and unfortunately, until he was kicked out of the family, he did not realize the usefulness of every word of his own father. Father said that the Shen family does not need a mediocrity like him who does not know martial arts, and from now on he is not a member of the family. Shen Qian realized that calculation had a good effect on his personal gain, but then he could not understand many things and that was bad. The woman approached Shen Qian and said that the charity company needed his support to save these children. And then on the news Shen Qian saw that this charity company was closed due to money laundering for children. Shen Qian watched the news and thought that it was good that he did not give this woman money when she asked to help poor children. Shen Qian worked on construction sites and thought that accurate calculations could bring maximum benefits and this was important to him. Shen Qian thought that it was good that his labor force was enough to carry out assignments and by working at a construction site he provided for himself. It was obvious to Shen Qian that calculation exists not only for the sake of money but also for other forms such as status, reputation and one's goals. Calculation brought more benefits when he thought that he did not need it, and thanks to these teachings he was able to survive. And now, thinking about this, it seemed to Shen Qian that the bandit was hired to deal with him and his chance of winning was zero. Shen Qian asked Zhang Chaoyu to hold back the bandit while he was rescuing the girls, and calling someone for help was a very right decision. Shen Qian remembered how Zhang Chaoyu asked him to take the girls and run away from there and promised to protect them even at the cost of his life. Shen Qian remembered that Zhang Chaoyu clung to the bandit's leg until the last moment so that he would not chase after them, because he gave them his word as a fighter. And Shen Qian realized that sometimes it is better to do something even if the chance of success is close to zero than to run away and regret it all his life. The bandit was preparing his attack at this time and asked Shen if he really thought of escaping from there and if he really thought that he would succeed. The bandit was furious and he immediately ran towards Shen Qian to strike this impudent man and finish him off once and for all. Shen Qian dodged his blow and thought that last time when the bandit was furious, his accuracy decreased and he was right. Shen Qian dodged the bandit's attack and ran past him, and he thought that everything was calculated and he was not mistaken in his guesses. The bandit turned around and told Shen Qian that he was a quick guy and it was extremely difficult to catch him with a blow despite the fact that he was strong. Shen Qian thought that the corner ahead was his chance to get inside, but first he was waiting for completely different important information. Shen Qian decided to jump and thought that he should wait for 300,000 to be credited to his account and then the situation will change. Shen Qian realized that this was his chance and immediately jumped from there with all his might and thought that now the bandit would never be able to catch up with him. But the bandit asked Shen Qian if he really thought that he would be able to escape from there and jumped after him, picking up a metal thing. The bandit caught up with Shen Qian and said that he would not succeed this time and immediately hit him in the stomach with a metal thing and he fell. Shen Qian realized that this bandit was also very fast and he was in great pain from this blow, and besides, the bandit was powerful. Shen Qian crashed into the wall and there was a deafening roar and the wall in this house broke from such a collision with a living person. Shen Qian found himself inside the house and crashed into a bookcase, lying down and watching as a bandit approached him with a weapon in his hands. The bandit approached Shen Qian and said that although he didn't know why he ran there, he didn't care at all because he would die soon. The bandit told Shen Qian that now he was driven into a corner and whatever he hid there no longer mattered and he could not defend himself from him. But at that moment, a message came to Shen Qian's phone that a transfer of 300,000 had been received into his account at Yanbei Bank. Shen Qian read the message and immediately smiled and told this bandit that this blow was also part of his plans and he had calculated everything. Shen Qian said that he originally wanted to go to this room and knew that it would stop him, so he chose a different direction. Shen Qian said that everything went according to his plan and took out a pill from his pocket and immediately swallowed it while the bandit only watched him. The bandit told Shen Qian that it was now clear what he wanted to do and asked if he really needed this pill and was stalling for time. The bandit thought that Shen Qian's arrogance did not prevent him from taking this pill and Shen asked the system to start enrolling. The system informed Master Shen Qian that the conversion was quickly completed and now there was 1 million yuan in the owner's account. The system withdrew 1 million to upgrade the master's martial art to full level, and the process of purifying the qi of heaven and earth was begun. The bandit asked Shen Qian if he really couldn't withstand such an effect of the pill, and then he fell silent and said that it seemed like he understood everything. The bandit said that he seemed to have underestimated this garbage and did not think that he suddenly began the process of the first purification of heaven and earth chi. The bandit told Shen Qian that he wanted to go to the first level of martial arts but it was useless and he would die anyway. The bandit swung and wanted to hit Shen Qian, but he grabbed the bandit's hand and prevented the fighter from striking him. The bandit was in shock and did not understand how this was possible because he was still much stronger than Shen Qian, but he stopped him. Shen Qian looked straight into the bandit's eyes and waved his hand so that the bandit was frightened by his movements and was in suspense all the time. Shen Qian pushed the bandit's hand away and said that previously his strength was far from his strength, but now they were at equal levels. Shen Qian told the bandit that now he will show him something that he has never seen, and these are the fatal blows of the bloody fist of the hawk. The bandit called Shen Qian a kid and said that he had never fought a real battle before and could not win the first level. The bandit ran up to Shen Qian and their fists collided with each other and a huge shock wave was formed there because they are both powerful. Shen Qian flew to the closet and the bandit told him that their strength was equal, but he was an experienced fighter and his beast technique was much better. The bandit flew into the wall and told Shen Qian that it was a good blow and asked the fighter if this was all his strength and technique. The bandit said that in any case, his furious beast technique will become better with each blow and he is digging his own grave. But Shen Qian just smiled at the bandit's words and asked if he was really so sure of this and that he would definitely defeat the student. And at that moment Shen Qian began to quickly run towards the bandit and he thought that it was very fast and he might not have time to defend himself. The bandit defended himself from Shen Qian's blows and he used the endless barrage of blood hawk attacks and attacked him. The bandit said that it was useless and the most important thing in the hawk technique is the direction that should be collected from the bottom up. The bandit told Shen Qian that if his body was in the wrong stance, then she would not be able to release all his power in his strikes. The bandit continued to defend himself and told Shen Qian that thanks to his furious beast technique, his attacks increase his potential. And immediately after these words, the bandit hit Shen Qian and said that he can continue in the same spirit and he will kill him with one finger. But after being hit by the bandit, Shen Qian did not feel any pain and he landed on the cabinet and thought that his attacks were not terrible. Shen Qian told the bandit that he says that he is getting stronger but there was not a scratch on him and by chance his beast strength is not pork. Shen Qian called the bandit himself a pig and said that he could approach him without fear if he had the courage to do so. The bandit told Shen Qian that he was a brave man even in the face of death and this was commendable and he had great respect for such people. The bandit swung and wanted to hit Shen Qian, but suddenly at that moment his elbow got stuck in the wall and he realized that it was bad. Shen Qian looked at this and realized that the bandit had just revealed himself and this was his chance and he should never miss such a moment. Shen Qian quickly found himself in front of the bandit and struck him with his elbow, and the bandit, despite his technique, felt the blow. From such a strong blow, the wall in the house broke and the bandit began to fly in some direction and could not believe that Shen Qian was hit. The bandit immediately stood up and told Shen Qian that it was very good, but with this blow he became much stronger and could kill him. The bandit wanted to attack Shen Qian but suddenly he froze in place and realized that something was wrong and it was difficult for him to move. And then the bandit fell to his knee and didn't know what kind of garbage it was and why his body didn't listen to him and his strength was leaving him now. Shen Qian said that the fierce beast technique helped increase the potential of only minor injuries and relieved pain in the body. Shen Qian said that it was enough for him to strike again, which he did at the very beginning near the heart and seriously injured him. The bandit asked Shen Qian whether he was talking about the blow he struck at the very beginning and whether he had calculated everything so far. Shen Qian stood in front of the wounded bandit and said that he said everything correctly and from the very beginning he was ready to fight with the fighter. The bandit told Master Shen that he was an outstanding warrior and he said that such a warrior would not beat his wounded opponent. Shen Qian smiled and asked the bandit if he really thought so and it was very interesting for him and he was happy about it. But immediately after these words, Shen Qian quickly walked towards the bandit and wanted to use military equipment to end all this. Shen Qian began to strike hundreds of blows at the wounded bandit and he screamed and asked Shen Qian to stop attacking but he continued. And in the end the bandit fell to the floor and lost consciousness because he was in great pain from the blows and could no longer endure it. Shen Qian told the bandit that he would always keep his word and at the very beginning he said that he would beat him so that even his own mother would not know. And after Shen Qian calmed down, he immediately felt pain in his hands after so many blows and he was in great pain. And so the kidnapping incident came to an end and all those bandits who caused the chaos were arrested and went to prison. The martial arts master was put on special handcuffs that blocked his spiritual energy, and he, too, along with everyone else, was immediately sent to prison. And besides the broken talisman, this bandit had nothing, not even money, and Shen wanted to find out more information about his technique. Afterwards, in the police officer's office, Shen said that this situation was dangerous and the criminal threatened to kill and he saved all the people. The officer asked Shen Qian why he had the feeling that this was not the first time he had heard these words and he thought why Shen again. Shen Qian told the officer that the master they caught was very cruel and they should check him against their database. But at that moment a policeman came into the room and told the officer that the DNA and fingerprint analysis had been successfully completed. Shen Qian couldn't believe his ears and told the officer that they dealt with it very quickly and it looked like professionals were working there. The officer told Shen Qian that he was right and this master was an escaped criminal who changed his name and returned to Yanbei City. Shen Qian asked the officer if it was true and if he helped them, he was wondering if he could receive a reward. The officer asked Shen Qian not to worry and said that he had learned about his award and he could return home and wait for good news. The officer did not expect that they would be able to catch this criminal and he saw that Shen was sitting there and asked why he did not go anywhere. Shen Qian asked the officer if he could find out that he could refuse this award because he didn't need it as before. The officer was surprised and asked Shen what he wanted then and wondered if he really needed money and he had changed so much in a couple of days. Shen Qian said that this bandit created problems not only for him and there was someone behind him and he wanted to catch the one hiding in the shadows. Shen Qian thought that if he did not kill those who were behind this, he would not be able to sleep peacefully and decided to go to the hospital to see a friend. At this time, Zhang Chaoyu was lying in the VIP ward and suddenly the system informed Master Zhang that this mission had been successfully completed. Zhang got the points but he thought that they were all endurance points and until he used martial arts his defense was weak. The system informed Master Zhang that with the help of the hero system, as long as the master does good deeds, his strength will quickly increase. Zhang Chaoyu thought that he was doing everything not to increase his strength, but because he himself wanted to help his loved ones. The system said that the owner thought correctly and he was a good person and otherwise the system could not exist with him. But at that moment, someone called Zhang Chaoyu's phone and distracted him from his thoughts, and Zhang thought who it could be calling him now. Zhang Chaoyu turned around and saw that this was his sweet Liangling and he was glad that it was the one he had always dreamed of who called him. Zhang Chaoyu asked Liangming what happened and she asked him which ward he was in and Shen wasn't and she wanted to visit him. And 3 days after that, Li's people gathered in the building of financial specialist Mu Zi and explained the details to their boss. People asked Brother Li not to tell them that nothing could be changed, because they hoped that everything could still be fixed. People from the gang asked Boss Li to give them some advice because they themselves didn't know what to do next and how to act. Li asked people if they were afraid of the Lin family because the head of Lin was her crazy father, but they didn't harm his daughter and everything was fine. Li said that Lin told him that if he wanted to take revenge on someone, he had to do it himself and their opponent was a young lady with no experience. People told Brother Li that they didn't know about it and that's why he was their boss because he always knew about everything and could give them advice. But at that moment, a man from the gang told Brother Li that trouble had happened and the bank froze their offshore accounts and the money was lost. Assistant Li asked Xiaohu not to scare people and asked if maybe he was mistaken after all, and Li asked Xiaohu what he just told him. Xiaohu checked the information and told Brother Li that not only they, but also their hidden offshore accounts were also frozen and this was strange. People told Brother Li that companies were terminating contracts with them and it seemed like someone had hacked into his computer and stolen important documents. People told Brother Li that they had a feeling that someone was watching them all this time because they knew about all their illegal affairs. Brother Li ate shrimp and told his people that he obviously didn't expect this and it seems that he underestimated this petty girl from the Lin family. At this time, the students at the headquarters Lin Liangming told Shen that her family had a rule to act first and be in charge. Liangming said that she should always rely on herself and Shen Qian told her that he didn't expect Liangming to have such a side. Shen Qian said that he doesn't really understand finance and business, but he asked because she was the one who drove that secretive man into a dead end. Liang Ming asked Shen Qian what he thought and whether he was ready to fight this secretive man and his entire gang. Shen said that of course he is ready, and this is a very profitable business because the investigation department is watching them and they have nowhere to run now. Shen Qian told Liang Ming that although he himself dealt with this Li Wenwei, the police want to wait for a chance and take them all at once. At this time, in the financial building, Brother Li was telling everyone who worked for him that they were accused just like him and they should unite. Brother Li's people said that their boss said everything correctly and they immediately agreed with his proposal because they really trusted the boss. Li asked his people to gather everyone else and tonight they will just have dinner together and discuss some matters and issues. Li asked his people to drink and eat to their fill, and after that they would definitely be ready to overcome all difficulties together. People said that everything would be fine and thought that Li Wenwei was brave and decided to gather everyone together to boost morale. That night, all of Li Wenwei's men got drunk and were happy with their boss, and after a couple of hours they started looking for the boss and couldn't find. People approached their friends and asked where Brother Li was because the last time they saw him was a couple of hours ago and he had disappeared somewhere. People said they didn't know, but the last time they saw him, Brother Li said he wanted to buy something for this holiday. And at that very second, someone began to beat on the door of the building and broke into this room where all the people of the boss Li Wenwei were, and they were surprised. And then suddenly the military burst into the room and ordered everyone to stand, and all the employees of Mu Zi's office would be arrested for crimes. The police officer asked the people where their boss Li Wenwei was and they didn't know either, because he told them that he was going to the restroom and disappeared. The police officer was furious and said that it seemed like Li Wenwei knew that they would attack and set up his men to escape from there. The police officer broke the wall with one blow because he wanted to catch the main villain today and there might not have been another chance. And at that moment the police officer thought and wondered where Shen Qian had gone because he didn't see him there, and before that he was next to them. Li Wenwei ran away and told Liang Ming and Shen that they don't know how to work hard and then run like a coward and they will meet again. Li Wenwei said that they made him sweat and it was great, and he told them to be alert and not get into this situation themselves. But at that moment someone asked him if he was Li Wenwei's brother and said that he was right and knew that he would set everyone up and run away. It was Shen Qian, and he said that he had assumed but did not expect that everything would happen like this, and he had already taken care of him a couple of days ago. Li Wenwei said that he admitted defeat and he defeated Wu Juli and the others, and this proved that he had the strength and talent of a fighter. Li Wenwei said that he did not expect that Mr. Shen would be able to calculate everything and catch him, but he thought that there was no point in fighting. Li Wenwei told Shen Qian that there were 3 million yuan in his bag and he first planned to use it in another city in Shandong. Li Wenwei said that if Mr. Shen lets him through, he will give him this money, and if not, then he will be arrested and all the money will be confiscated. Shen Qian was very surprised to hear such a sum and that he could earn such a lot of money just by letting this boss pass. Shen Qian began to think and told Li Wenwei that this sounded very tempting and he had a very difficult choice to make in his life. Li Wenwei asked Shen Qian if they had agreed and said that he didn't have much time because he had to hurry from there. And then Li Wenwei began to quietly take out a key from his pocket, and he was planning something very bad when he talked to Shen Qian. And at that very second, Li Wenwei threw this key with all his might towards Shen Qian and said that he could die and it would happen quickly. The key flew with incredible force and speed, but suddenly Shen Qian was not there and Brother Li wondered where this fighter could have gone. Li Wenwei looked up and wondered if Shen Qian managed to dodge his throw, and it was very commendable and fast. Shen sat upstairs and told Li that he threw the key with such force and said that he was cunning and stronger than him but attacked on the sly. Shen Qian told Li Wenwei that unfortunately he did not believe him from the very beginning and was vigilant to all his movements of his arms and legs. Li Wenwei told Shen Qian that he seemed to have underestimated him, but still Shen was a level 1 fighter and he was a level 3 fighter. And then suddenly the military and a police officer appeared in front of Li and told him that he was surrounded and he should raise his hands and surrender to them. Li Wenwei looked at these military men and wondered how they were able to find him so quickly, and was this really what he was thinking about now? Shen Qian told the police officer that he was truly amazing and they got there so quickly by tracking his location. Shen Qian said that this time he helped them catch this main criminal, and the police officer said that he would definitely take this into account. Li Wenwei told Mr. Shen that he sent the officer the location as soon as he met him and did not want to fight him one-on-one. The soldiers immediately approached Li Wenwei and quickly handcuffed his hands and thought that the gang's main boss had finally been caught. Li Wenwei, passing by Shen Qian, asked Mr. Did he really think that he had defeated him this time and was so proud and thought that he was smart. Li Wenwei asked Mr. Shen Qian to just wait and soon he would understand who the real winner was, and Shen was waiting for this moment. The next day, Shen Qian was relaxing on the sofa at home after yesterday's events and thought that yesterday he was busy from morning to night. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that he had done a great thing this time and asked how much he earned by helping the police again. Shen Qian was upset and said that yesterday he did not earn anything and neither the police nor Liangming's father paid him, although he was waiting for it. Shen Qian asked Wuzhen if she knew which job she could earn the most money in and that she should like this job. Wu Jin asked where she could earn the most money and she was very interested in what kind of work in this world suited her so well. Wuzhen asked if she could be his nanny or help him with his homework or cook or clean Shen Qian's house. Shen Qian said that it was not that kind of work and it seems that Wuzhen still does not understand his value and the work where he will work. Shen Qian took a short pause and told Wuzhen that she would be a martial arts teacher and she herself was surprised by Shen Qian's words. Wu Jin imagined how she would walk on the street in the clothes of a martial arts teacher and she thought that it was very strange for her. Wu Jin thought that if she did this and became a martial arts teacher, then all people would look at her and they might not understand her. Dinner asked Shen Qian if he didn't pay her before because he wanted to open a martial arts school and make her a teacher. Shen Qian said that of course this is true and only by doing business Wuzhen will be able to earn big profits and I wonder how much. Wuzhen threw the teacher's clothes at Shen Qian and said that she didn't even know the basics of martial arts and she definitely couldn't be a teacher. But Shen Qian immediately interested Wuzhen, saying that she would receive 30% of the income of this school if she agreed. Wu Jin said that if she only taught the basics, then it would be possible, and wasn't teaching people to practice fighting the easiest thing? Shen Qian heard Wuzhen's words and asked her to wait for a few seconds and asked whether such words from her sound very strange. So, thanks to funding from the corporation, Liang Wuzhen began working in a center to improve the level of martial arts. With the help of PR from her corporation, their class very quickly recruited students from the team who were interested in learning these fights. And when classes officially began, all the students were pleased with teacher Wu Jin and everyone realized that she was familiar with these battles. A month later, Shen Qian was sitting in class and asked Wuzhen, in her maid uniform, to bring him a checkbook so he could check something. Wuzhen thought that this maid uniform embarrassed her, but Shen Qian said that he would raise her salary by 20 yuan for this uniform. Wuzhen brought him what he asked for and Shen Qian calculated that if we subtract the costs of rent and so on, the profit would be 40,000 yuan. Shen Qian said that this was enough to provide Wuzhen and him with food, clothes and travel, and everything was fine with business. But then Shen was called by Liangming and he asked Miss Liang what she was doing there and did she really want to sponsor their martial arts center. Liangming asked Shen Qian to stop joking and said that she had just found out that the principal wanted to expel him from his school. Shen Qian did not understand Liangming's words and said that he asked the teacher for leave and told the student that she should not joke with him so harshly. Shen Qian said that he always followed the rules and always did all the tasks and was a smart, handsome student and could not be expelled. Wuzhen agreed with Shen Qian's brother's words and told Liangming that she can confirm that he is trying and for this he will be expelled. Liangming reported that the director told her that Shen had violated 13 rules during this time, of which 3 were the most important in the school. And the first thing is cheating in the exam and Shen Qian said that the exam she is talking about passed a long time ago and teacher Lin forgave him for it. Liangming reported that they said that they would not count the exam results, but they would cheat in the next exam as well. Shen Qian asked Liangming what she was talking about and he just felt sorry for that fat man Wei Pan and helped him take first place. Liangming asked Shen Qian if he himself believed in this and secondly, he destroyed the reputation of the school by arranging such money transactions there. Shen Qian said that he was not a hooligan and only bought pills from students and sold his work to the rich and this is all within the law. Shen Qian told Liangming that for that matter, they need to close their defective canteen because it also spoils the reputation of the school. Wuzhen approached Sister Liangming and asked her to drink some water and calm down after such a nervous start to the day and get some rest. Liangming said thank you to Sister Wuzhen and said that she was very kind as always and she always liked her humble nature. Shen Qian thought that they were just angry with him and wanted to hear from Liang Ming about another rule he had broken. But Liang Ming started shouting at Shen Qian and asked if he would give her water to drink and asked if he wanted her to die of thirst. Shen Qian was surprised by such a violent reaction and told his sister Liang Ming that he understood her and now will not distract her from this matter. Liang Ming finally drank the water calmly and told Shen Qian that it was great water and she really felt relaxed after drinking it. Liang Ming told Shen Qian that he also dared to fight in this school with Gaobua and his students and violated the middle school rule. Shen Qian said that they were the first to start and wanted to gain Hao Tian's trust, and he recorded everything on a tape recorder and took it personally to the director. Liang Ming told Shen that he helped the police and received a good reputation and the school was proud of him and turned a blind eye to violations. And Liang Ming told Shen Qian that obviously someone is just trying to frame Shen Qian and get him expelled from school. Shen Qian began to wonder who could have wanted to set him up so much and who would have benefited from his leaving the Yanbei school and, moreover, in disgrace. Shen Qian asked if it was Hao Tian and Liang Ming said that he said everything correctly and she found out about it precisely because of Shen Haotian. Liang Ming said that the Shen family had little power over this school and it was enough for Hao Tian to give a reason to be kicked out. Shen Qian thought that after all Hao Tian had made his move, but before he looked down on him and his recent actions had tensed him. Liang Ming asked Shen Qian to go with her and find out what else could be done and said that Zhang Chaoyu was also protecting him there now. Shen Qian was surprised and asked if even he decided to help him and it was very pleasant because he believed that they were best friends. Shen Qian asked Wuzhen to stay there and look after the center while he and Liang Ming went to school and tried to solve this problem. Wuzhen agreed with Shen Qian's brother and said that she would wait for good news from him and hoped that he would not be expelled. Half a day later, Shen Qian told Liang Ming that it seems that Hao Tian still thinks that he can expel him and does not realize one thing. Shen Qian said that Hao Tian did not know that she and Zhang Chaoyu would also help him and they would replace the expulsion with a temporary suspension. Liang Ming asked Shen if there was a big difference between expulsion and suspension and that his education simply stopped for a while. But then Liang Ming stopped and asked Shen Qian to forgive her because he saved her earlier and she could not repay him in kind now. Shen Qian asked what she was saying and the two of them helped him a lot and achieved a simple dismissal and this is also a big victory for him. Shen Qian told Liang Ming that he didn't care whether he went to this school or not, he just needed a transcript to be accepted into college. Liang Ming said that it was true and he had already reached the first level of full martial arts and that with the fury of the beast was beyond his strength. Liang Ming told Shen Qian that of course he does not need to learn the basics of martial arts at school and Shen said that this is true. Shen Qian told Liang Ming that his goal now is to enter the most prestigious martial arts university in the country of Yanbei. But then suddenly people closed the Wujin Level Up Center and they said that finally the Association of Martial Masters closed this school. People asked what this center was doing and they dared to simply open a school with the lowest certificate from Liang Corporation. People said that they had long suspected that something was wrong and that this teacher had a weak body and she taught Tai and did not know the technique. Liang Ming immediately called her people and asked why the Level Up school was closed and asked them to quickly find out everything. Wu Jin started crying and said that she heard a noise outside and when she went out to see their school then people quickly sealed it. Shen Qian said that something was wrong there and thought who was so offended by him and maybe it was Shen Haotian taking revenge on him. And then Liang Ming approached Shen Qian and said that she had just found out everything and a guy named Yuzhen Yi was behind this incident. Shen Qian heard this name for the first time and asked Liang Ming who it was and why he hated it so much and what he needed from them. Liang Ming said that Li Wenwei, whom they arrested, was not actually the real organizer of that recent kidnapping. Liang Ming said that behind him is the real head and owner of the entire Yanbei underground world and that very person's name was Yuzhen Yi. Liang Ming said that Yu Songyi is considered a mafia and he has a very close relationship with Huang Tiankong, the president of the Fighting Association. Liang Ming said that this time Yuzhen Yi reported about his school and Huang Tian closed it and Shen asked if this was revenge for his fighters. Liang Ming said that very often when opening centers they rely on a certificate of qualification and can put pressure on schools with this. Liang Ming said that the martial arts center will not be opened even if they terminate the contract with Lin's company and they need a license. Liang Ming told Shen Qian that usually a license of this level can be obtained upon reaching the third level of a martial master. Liang Ming told Shen Qian that with his skills it would take a year and a half, but Shen smiled and said that he didn't think it was that important. Shen Qian said that Haotian thinks that he is a worm and he will do anything to kick him out of school and stop him from studying. Shen Qian said that in addition to all this, Yu Songyi also used his connections to close his school and leave him without a single income. Shen Qian said that he doesn't like this and they don't want to be proud of him and don't want him to pass all the exams and go to college. Shen Qian told Liang Ming that he could not back down and must pass these exams at all costs and go straight to college. Shen Qian told Liang Ming that since they stopped him from opening his martial arts center, he should do something bigger. But Shen Qian said that if he can't get a certificate of the level he needs, then he definitely won't pass the test for the right college. After that, Shen Qian returned home and, lying on his bed, asked the system to check the balance of his virtual account and find out the status. The system informed the master that the owner's current balance was 30,000 yuan and Shen Qian realized that this was not enough for his purposes. Shen Qian thought that such a small amount would not be enough and he began to think that maybe he should better ask Liang Ming for loans. But Shen Qian realized that if he asked Liang Ming and Zhang Chaoyu for money, he could get a maximum of 1 or 2 million yuan. But Shen Qian understood that 1 or 2 million would not be enough to even reach the full level of a bloody hawk strike. Shen Qian thought that it means he can no longer stick to this plan and if he had any other techniques of that level. And at that very second, Wuzhen came into the house and told brother Shen that she bought martial arts books at the market for only 1,000 yuan. After that, Shen Qian sat down in the living room with Wuzhen and began to study the books that Wuzhen brought him and there were many interesting techniques there. Shen Qian realized that the iron fist technique was useless and there was no information about qi energy in it and he did not need it. Wu Jin studied another book and said that this book had too many mistakes and the author wrote some nonsense and he didn't watch the fights. Shen Qian despaired and said that of course it was impossible to find anything worthwhile in such a market and said that he was still too naive. But at that moment, Wu Jin said that the title of this book was intriguing about the divine art of transformation and asked him to take a look. Wu Jin opened this book and said that the introduction was very clear and the description was much better than other authors and this is a treasure. Shen Qian said that the name really sounded impressive and he thought that it was something from fighting and not a regular transformation technique. Wuzhen told Shen Qian that he was wrong and this was not just an ordinary transformation, but that it was much better than what he expected. Shen Qian listened to her and said that it still couldn't change anything and he was disappointed that he didn't have money in his account. 15 minutes later, Wuzhen was reading a book to understand the essence of this technique and Shen Qian was just lying next to her and did not want to get up. But then Wu Jin said that this technique allows you to change your appearance and height as you wish, and there was even a chance to copy someone's appearance. But Wuzhen told Shen Qian that this was just the author's guess since the author himself had not reached the full level of this technique. Wuzhen was sorry that this technique is not related to the purification of qi energy and many people will not go beyond the initial level of the technique. But Shen Qian wondered if he could really copy anyone else's appearance and said that it was incredible and very interesting. And at that very second Shen Qian asked Wuzhen to give him the book because it was rare and to pack the rest of the books and throw them in the warehouse. Wuzhen was surprised and asked Shen Qian if he really wanted to practice this technique now because the technique was impossible for study. Shen Qian said that fortunately he now has a lot of time to practice as much as possible and he also came up with a way to earn money. After Shen Qian went to Xiang Xian Financial Company and realized that the current loan company is much better than ordinary banks. But the girl at the company apologized to him and said that based on his credit history, the company decided to refuse the loan. Shen Qian said that their company had a very high percentage of approved loans and why then did they have such harsh conditions? The girl told Mr. Shen that this did not concern him and said that their financial company does not approve a loan for everyone and that is a fact. Shen Qian said that he found information on the internet that the deputy director was Li Wan, whom he detained the other day. Shen Qian asked the company girl to look at his face and said that it was he who detained the former employee of the company. Shen Qian, having told these stories, asked the girl if she could call her director and see for herself now in person. The girl immediately reached for the phone to call her director and make sure that this client was telling the truth. The girl talked with the director for several minutes and, after listening to his words, said that she understood him and wished him a good day. The girl from the company realized that Shen Qian was telling the truth and got up and went to the client to talk to him about loans. The girl bowed before Shen Qian and said that she was wrong, and now she found out that he is Mr. Shen Qian from the Shen family. Shen Qian thought that he wanted to master this technique and turn into Haotian, but now money was more important and he would be recognized by his voice. Shen Qian asked the girl from the company why she had now stopped mocking him and had she really found out the information. The girl was nervous and told Mr. Shen Qian that she was very mistaken and acted stupidly and asked him to forgive her for this. The girl accompanied Shen Qian to the director's office and told Mr. Shen Qian that the director was expecting him and was glad to receive him. Shen Qian walked into the office and told the director that he wanted a loan of 3 million yuan and would they be able to lend it to him. The director said that since he was Mr. Shen Qian, they could approve him for a loan of up to 5 million yuan and that was the maximum. Shen Qian asked the director if he wasn't afraid of non-payment of the debt, because it was a very considerable amount to repay the loan. But the director said that he completely believes Mr. Shen Qian, and how is it possible that he did not return the money to them on time. The director said that the interest rate is 6% and the term is 3 months, and if the debt is not repaid, the rate for his debt will immediately double. The director told Shen Qian that the money would be transferred to his account within a day, and Shen said that they have crazy interest rates there. Shen Qian extended his hand to the director and said that this time he wanted to thank Director Zhang for his help at such a moment. Director Zhang and Shen Qian shook hands and the director said that he should not thank him because it was just his job and duty. The director shook Shen Qian's hand firmly and he realized that he had a very strong hand, and it was not surprising that he was the director. Director Zhang asked Shen Qian if he needed any more help and said that they were very happy to help at any time. Shen Qian thought that it looked like Director Zhang was also a practitioner and his hands even itched and he wanted to know how strong he was. And after Shen Qian left, the director wondered if Shen really wanted to use this money to buy a certificate for the school. Director Zhang said that becoming stronger was not a matter of one day and he thinks that the speed of development of his strength is higher than his ambitions. The director said that if the puppy expelled from the Shen family does not return the money within 3 months, he will kill him without any regret. Shen Qian, as he thought, the Long San Xian company lent him money and now they are afraid that they will not be able to get rid of him soon. Shen Qian realized that this Director Zhang has the same level as him and next time he will play a little with this practitioner. And after that, after resting for a couple of days at home, Shen Qian finally went out for a walk outside and breathed in the fresh air and daytime sun. Shen Qian came to the Swedish grill restaurant and thought that he had been restoring his strength at home for 3 whole days and finally got out. The girls from the restaurant saw Shen Qian and said that these termites had appeared there again and asked her friend to quickly close the doors. The girls from the restaurant said that they were there a couple of days ago and did they really come there again and why did they appear in the restaurant? The girl quickly took the sign and ran to the restaurant and said that they need to close and take away the billboard, otherwise termites will eat everything. Shen Qian, together with Wuzhen, stood near the restaurant and did not understand whether it was they who scared these workers so much that they ran away from there.